Tokyo Ghoul is a manga that was written by Sui Ishida. It's a dark story that features a boy, Ken Kaneki, as he ventures into the world of ghouls, and how he's not only changing physically, but changing emotionally as a person. It's a story that features a lot of action, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of introspection, great character development, a plethora of jaw-dropping moments, and twists and turns the likes of which you may have never seen before. The manga was originally released on September 8th, 2011, and it ended on September 18th, 2014. It had a 3-year run, and it subsequently had an anime version as well. Although, not as many people are fans of the anime as compared to the manga, since the character development is not as good, and they changed the course of certain events. However, I'll let you be the judge of that as we explore the world of Tokyo Ghoul, the manga. Beings known as ghouls hunt down humans as a source of food. Best friends, Hide and Kaneki, discuss the incident, remarking how the ghouls disguise themselves as humans. Hide then calls over a cute coffee girl, whose name is Toka, so he can hit on her. Kaneki then glances over at Rize, whom he thinks is rather cute. The two share interest in the same author, propelling them to go out on a date. Kaneki notices that Rize barely touches her food. Rize is scared to walk home, since there have been numerous ghoul attacks near her house. Kaneki decides to walk her home, but she eventually sinks her teeth into him, admitting that she's a ghoul. Kaneki attempts to escape, but is gouged by one of her claws. As she gets ready for her meal, steel bars fall on top of her. Kaneki later wakes up in the hospital, with the doctors using Rize's organs to save his life. As more time passes by, Kaneki thinks of how the events of that day don't feel real. He proceeds to eat his hospital food, noticing that it's repulsive to his taste buds. He later goes to get some burgers with Hide, commenting that it tastes like pig intestines. Kaneki watches a news report that says that ghouls can subsist on 1 human per month, and cannot digest nutrients of non-human origin. Kaneki continues to starve. One day, he sees Toka kill a perverted man that was hitting on her. "Do you want some?" says Toka to Kaneki. Toka wonders why Kaneki won't eat, as he runs away in fear. Later on, Kaneki stares at the others on the street, thinking of them as tasty morsels. What is this? Kaneki then prepares to gouge out the ghoul's organs to turn him back into a human again. Unfortunately, the knife can't penetrate his skin. Kaneki then approaches Toka, begging for her help. Toka refuses, but her boss decides to help him out, and thusly gives him a small package. Yoshimura informs Toka that Kaneki received his organs from Rize. Upon returning home, Kaneki tosses the meat away and discovers that he can tolerate the taste of coffee. After buying a grocery bag of coffee, Kaneki is drawn in by an intoxicating smell as he finds a ghoul eating a human. Nishiki kicks off the head of the ghoul, claiming he's on his feeding ground. Kaneki recognizes Nishiki from the convenience store. Nishiki threatens Kaneki for invading upon his turf, but Toka claims that it's Kaze's region. The two resolve their dispute through a battle, with Toka coming out ahead. Toka then forcibly shoves the human meat into Kaneki's face. Kaneki resists, claiming he's still a human and not a monster like her. Toka slams his head against the wall in rage. He is neither human nor ghoul, and the hunger of a ghoul is literal hell. Kaneki returns to school shortly afterwards, covering his ghoul eye with a patch. Hide notices he's not eating much, and Kaneki remarks that if he descends too far, he might never be able to see his friend again. They then barge into a room with Nishiki inside, causing Kaneki to freak out by his intimidating presence. The three then head to Nishiki's house to retrieve a CD, but stop off for some fish-shaped pancakes. Kaneki is surprised that Nishiki can consume the food and blend in with human society so seamlessly. Nishiki then corners the two and knocks Hide out. He claims that Kaneki was planning to eat Hide, but Kaneki rejects this. Nishiki knocks him down, noticing how frail Kaneki is. Kaneki rushes in to save his friend, yet Nishiki sends him flying back with a kick. Nishiki continues to berate him, as Kaneki feebly attempts to fight back. Nishiki then reveals his kagune, which is a predatory organ for ghouls. Kaneki reminisces about his friendship with Hide, as he angrily prepares for his first real attack. Kaneki rushes in like a speeding bullet, and impales Nishiki with his kagune. Kaneki then peers down at Hide, as if he were a delectable meal to consume. Toka intervenes, claiming she'll help him out with his hunger. Kaneki later wakes up, finding out that Toka brought him and Hide here last night. Kaneki realizes he's all alone, and has no place where he belongs. Yoshimura consoles him, saying he belongs to both worlds, and henceforth offers him a job at the coffee shop. Yoshimura teaches Kaneki about making coffee, telling him if a human with a large handbag enters the shop, to tell him about it secretly. Toka warns Kaneki not to tell Hide about being a ghoul, and if he were ever to find out, she'd have to kill him. Later on, Yoshimura teaches Kaneki how to quote-unquote eat food to fool people. He then instructs him to vomit the food up afterwards to avoid any negative health consequences. Yoshimura gives Kaneki a quote-unquote sugar cube to curb his hunger. However, he reiterates that he needs to eat meat on a regular basis. A mother and daughter who can't hunt pick up a package from Yoshimura. We then see Mado and Amon, both police investigators that hunt down ghouls. Yoshimura asks Toka to help Kaneki get his mask made. Later on, the two arrive at the art mask studio. Toka introduces Kaneki to Uda. Uda mentions some of the more dangerous wards that sometimes feature cannibalism amongst ghouls. Uda analogizes their existence to a tightrope walker, constantly exposing themselves to dangerous situations. Toka explains that they wear masks to avoid being caught by ghoul investigators, who are relentless. Kaneki then attempts to eat a sandwich, but he still feels like vomiting. Nishiki's girlfriend tells Hide and Kaneki that he's in the hospital. Kaneki then wonders if she's a ghoul. Yoshimura then asks Kaneki if he can gather food supplies. He meets with Yomo, who instructs him to get into the car. They eventually get out, and Kaneki subsequently falls down a cliff on accident. Yomo jumps down to see Kaneki's trembling face at the sight of a dead body. Many people commit suicide here, and they take the bodies for their own purposes. Kaneki becomes perplexed when Yomo prays in front of the body. Yomo then picks up Fue Gucci. He warns her that the ghoul investigators are looking for her. At the commission of Counter Ghoul, CCG, Amon berates another officer for not doing what it takes to gather all the necessary information to catch the ghouls. Later on, Amon digs up a grave of Fuguchi's husband to find his ghoul mask, confirming that she must be a ghoul too. Kaneki goes to get some coffee and finds Hinama in the midst of her meal, shocking him greatly. He then returns with coffee to apologize to her. He quickly finds out that her mother doesn't allow her to attend school. Fuguchi tells Yoshimura that they'll be getting their own food from now on, as they can't rely on them forever. The two leave the shop as Amon and Mado confront them. The mother hugs Hinama, instructing her to run. Fuguchi releases her Kagune, preparing herself for battle. Due to Fuguchi's limited fighting experience, she looks to be beaten. Hinami runs into Kaneki, crying that her mother is in trouble. The two rush over, only to see Mado slash her head off in an instant. Yoshimura brings Toka upstairs to tell her that Fuguchi was killed by ghoul investigators. Hinami will thusly be sheltered at Inteku and eventually move her to the 24th ward. Toka wants to seek revenge, but Yomo and Yoshimura emphasize that it would not be wise. Toka leaves in rage as Yoshimura tells Kaneki not to blame himself for the incident. Later on, Toka looks to seek revenge on those responsible for the incident. After two investigators have dinner with Amon, they walk home, and Kusaba gets slashed by someone in a rabbit-shaped mask. Amon intervenes, determining that this is a ghoul attacking them. Amon determines that she's an instantaneous type. Mado steps in, telling Amon not to forget about his Quinski. Mado slashes Toka in the arm, so she's forced to retreat, but she's in considerable pain. When Toka goes to grab some coffee, her injury acts up. Yoshimura tells Kaneki that she got involved with the Doves, otherwise known as the Ghoul Investigators. Kaneki looks to treat Toka's wound, but she poses a hypothetical question. Go kill those fucking doves in my place, okay? Kaneki mentions that he'd be sad if Toka died, and asks her to teach him how to use his Kagune. The two head underground to train. Toka says that he must die though, and begins attacking him. She takes off his patch and breaks his finger. Kaneki releases his Kagune, but Toka notes that it's weaker than the one he used against Nishiki. Kaneki is a Rinkaku type of ghoul, which is a strong ghoul with quick healing. Uda then arrives to give Kaneki his mask. He notes a heightened exhilaration when he puts it on. Toka and Kaneki continue their training. Later on, the two wear uniforms and change their looks so they can approach the CCG. Investigators inside talk about the quote-unquote gourmet getting one of their guys. Toka tells Kaneki about the RC scan gate, which can identify a ghoul on the spot. Toka tells a woman false information about Hinami. The woman says that killing a young woman is heart-wrenching, but since ghouls aren't humans, it's only natural that they destroy them. Mado runs into Toka, wanting to hear her side of the story inside the building. Mado becomes impatient, dragging Kaneki through the RC gate. Toka says she needs to go to cram school, and Kaneki chases after her. Afterwards, Mato wonders if his senses are becoming dull, since the RC gate didn't pick up on the fact that Kaneki was a ghoul. Nakjima goes to dinner with Amon, and he cries over the fact that Kusaba is now dead due to a ghoul. Amon then trains in his apartment, saying he'll bring justice to this incorrect world. Kaneki sees a newspaper clipping about the dead investigator. Toka checks up on Hinami, handing her a newspaper to practice her reading. Hinami gets to the part about the dead investigator, making her extremely worried about Toka's actions. Later on, Kaneki and Toka check up on her, but she ran away. Toka runs ahead as Kaneki calls the manager. Toka finds Hinama crying under a bridge as she holds her mother's hand. Toka promises that she'll protect Hinami. Toka calls Kaneki as Mato walks in. Amon rushes over but is cut off by Kaneki. Kaneki lunges in, but is pinned against the ground by Amon. Kaneki's anger boils over as Amon pulls out his Quinque. Mato determines that Toka fed them false information. He thusly pulls out his Quinque and attacks Toka. He pulls out a second suitcase with another Quinque, saying that they are made of the Kagune of ghouls, this one being of Hinami's mother. Toka attacks with fury. Mato hits Toka, saying he took down Figuchi with her husband. Toka says she just wants to live like other humans, yet Mato prepares for his finishing attack. Amon questions Kaneki on why ghouls kill innocent people, as he claims they are the ones corrupting this world. Kaneki doesn't know how to respond to this, but he thinks of how ghouls have feelings too. Because Kaneki is both human and ghoul, he'll make Amon understand that everyone deserves a chance at life. After some back and forth, Kaneki lunges in to bite down on Amon. Kaneki's Kagune emerges as he destroys Amon's Quinque in an instant. Amon thinks it's all over, but Kaneki instructs him to run away. "Don't make me kill a person." Mato notices that his right hand is missing, as Hinami activates her Chimera Kagune. Mato becomes excited, wanting Hinami's Kagune for himself. Hinami then slices off his leg. Amon wonders why he was spared, as he needs to head towards Mato ASAP. Kaneki thinks about eating a person, as he wonders why he's saying this. Kaneki then attacks a hooded person, saying how hungry he is. The man he attacked was Yomo, as he hands him a package of human meat. Hinami's Kagune then reverts, as she wants to see her parents once more. Before Mato can attack, Toka finishes him off. Toka notices a wedding ring on his finger, realizing that he has a family too. Yomo is okay as they pick up Hinami. Amon returns to Mato as he cries profusely. With this incident, more investigators are bound to show up to this ward. Kaneki then thinks about how Amon said that this world is wrong. Amon reminisces about the first time he met Mato. Their first assignment was checking if an old woman was a ghoul. After testing her, Amon stormed away because he was angry with Mato for suspecting her in the first place. Amon runs into her again, seeing blood seep from her luggage. She attacks him with Amon meekly attacking back. Mato gives Amon useful advice, as Amon comes back to reality, thinking of how proud he was of Mato. It's been 10 years since a ghoul investigator died in the 20th ward. The CCG will thusly increase their efforts in the rabbit investigation. Kaneki visits the doctor to see how things are going, finding out that Rizei's family doesn't want to see him. Hide shows Kaneki a newspaper article talking about the daughter and the rabbit. Hide draws a connection between the two, freaking out Kaneki. At work, Kaneki apologizes to Yoshimura for acting on his own, yet the manager is pleased with his efforts. Yoshimura then says that Hinami is living at Toka's place. Toka's friend at school has her eat some meat, which she attempts to throw up in the bathroom. Toka meets Kaneki outside of her apartment as they walk in to greet Hinami. Toka's friend from school, Yoriko, then shows up to give her a meat and potato stew. Out of kindness, Toka forces herself to eat it out of respect, but immediately vomits it out. A mysterious man breaks into a woman's house for unknown reasons. Kaneki and Toka continue their training, as Yomo walks in and instructs Kaneki to hit him. Toka and Kaneki then combine their efforts, but Yomo is too quick for them. The young woman from earlier walks the streets, with her eyes gouged out. The quote-unquote gourmet ghoul then walks into the coffee shop, yet Toka shoos him away after some idle talk. Shu, the gourmet ghoul, then notes that he has a strong interest in Kaneki's scent. Shu then sits down with Kaneki at an outdoor table. They talk about books for a while, until Shu mentions how he's on the outs with the other ghouls in the 20th ward. Kaneki feels bad, so they agree to see each other in 3 days to talk about books again. Yomo takes Kaneki to the 14th ward, where he meets a woman, Itori, who scares him with a prank. Itari takes Kaneki to her bar, the Helter Skelter. She tells him that Yomo and Uda caused trouble in the 4th Ward when they were teenagers. Itari splashes some blood in Kaneki's face, revealing his Kakugan eye. Itari informs him that one-eyed ghouls are rare, but they are vastly superior to a full-blooded ghoul. They instruct Kaneki to avoid the other one-eyed ghoul, for the rumors say he or she practices cannibalism. Kaneki finds out that he was the bait in a plan to kill Rize. Itari thusly will trade information with him if he finds out about the ghoul restaurant from the Gourmet. In his search for the restaurant, Kaneki finds Nishiki being beat up. Kaneki then defends him against the thug ghouls. They then mistake him for the ghoul that killed the investigator in the 20th Ward, and thusly run away. Kaneki drops off Nishiki as he gets attacked by Kimi with a taser. Afterwards, Kimi begs Kaneki not to say anything about Nishiki, since harboring a ghoul is worse than harboring a human criminal. Though Kimi is a ghoul and knows what Nishiki is, she prefers to stay by his side, making Kaneki think that it would be nice if ghouls and humans could coexist. Kaneki meets up with Shu to have some iced coffee and discuss books. Kaneki then brings up Rize. Shu labels her a pig for ridiculing his gourmet food. Shu heads to the bathroom, where we learn that he desires Kaneki as a new type of feast. Shu takes Kaneki to his gourmet club. Kaneki is instructed to take a shower and is given a fancy suit to wear. He meets up with 2 other people who are told to do the same thing as him. They are then taken to another room where they are locked inside. The ceiling opens up as they find out that they are the ones being served for dinner. The other ghouls are skeptical about eating Kaneki since he's a ghoul, but Shu reassures them that his scent is intoxicating since it gives off a pronounced human smell. Now then, shall we enjoy the ultimate gourmet meal? A scrapper then enters the room to prepare them to be eaten. The scrapper rips apart Kobachi's right arm and tosses him amongst the ghouls. Amy, one of the other sacrifices, then kicks Kaneki down, telling him to act as a decoy. The scrapper then catches Amy and smashes her down. The scrapper then clutches onto Kaneki and attempts to saw his arm off, but it's ineffective. They then hand the scrapper a rather crude quinquet, to Kaneki's horror. Kaneki then breaks the scrapper's elbow. Kaneki, however, begins to feel weak due to the poisonous gas he's been inhaling. Kaneki then releases his Kakugan, surprising everyone. Shu then tears the scrapper to shreds. Madame then decides to delete the scrapper instead of Kaneki, as Shu tells Kaneki this was merely a joke and instructs him to forget about what happened. After waking up from a nightmare, Kaneki tells Yomo, Yoshimura, and Hinama about the things he saw last night. Yoshimura states that a ghoul must strengthen their heart and forget about the value of life if they have to live peacefully. Kimi then arrives at the coffee shop, telling Kaneki that the wound on Nishiki's stomach hasn't healed. Kaneki agrees to help her. On her way home, Shu captures her and tells her to cooperate with him. Kaneki then finds a letter from Shu, instructing him to come for dinner at 10 p.m. tonight, otherwise the girl will be harmed. Nishiki arrives at the coffee shop as he wants to help find Kimi too. They arrive at the church with Nishiki losing his cool. Shu then reveals that he wants to eat Kaneki while he's eating. Shu knocks out Nishiki and punches Kaneki in the face. After knocking Kaneki down, Toka hits Shu with a surprise attack. Toka and Shu then engage in battle as Kaneki checks in on Nishiki. Kaneki and Toka synchronize their attacks, yet Shu proves to be too strong for them. Shu then tastes Kaneki's blood, and it's beyond his expectations. Toka attempts to fight back, but is pierced by Shu's Kagune. Shu then sees a scar on Kimi's shoulder. Nishiki reminisces about his past, remembering how his older sister took care of him like a mother. She eventually got ratted out by a shop owner and was killed by ghoul investigators. Her final words to Nishiki were to stay alive. Shortly afterwards, he started a relationship with Kimi. One day, Nishiki was in a state of starvation, so Kimi allowed him to eat her just a bit so he wouldn't starve. She allowed him to do this because her family just died in a plane crash, and he came to her side and saved her. In real time, Nishiki attacks Shu with intense fury. Shu bloodies him up, but Nishiki threatens to kill him nevertheless. Toka is currently drained of strength, so Kaneki allows her to eat him for energy. He's mine! Toka then has a surge of energy as she releases her Kagune. Toka gains the upper hand, yet Shu's Kagune takes the shape of a blade as he becomes giddy with excitement. Toka destroys his Kagune, but Shu doesn't lose confidence until Nishiki grabs his tie and slices off his right arm. Shu staggers for a bit, but eventually collapses to the ground. Toka claims she needs to kill Kimi since both Nishiki and Kaneki's identities have been revealed. Toka attacks, yet Nishiki protects Kimi with his body. Kimi's blindfold falls off as she notes how beautiful Toka's Kagune is. Toka retreats, wondering if this is a beautiful thing. Amon continues to blame himself for Mato's death, becoming obsessed with his job. Itari is disappointed that Kaneki didn't get information about the restaurant. She then says that Rize does not exist, as she threw away her previous name. Kaneki then has his wallet stolen by a boy on the street. Some ghouls then look to attack the boy. Nishiki is now working at Enteku. Yoshimura will provide him with meat so he can live a crime-free life. The CCG is currently increasing their efforts. The pickpocket from earlier then slits the throats of the ghouls that attacked him. Two of Mato's previous partners, Shinohara and Hoji, meet with Amon. Amon then meets with Takazawa, who is a junior graduate from the academy last year. Amon still doesn't have a new partner, but the main office is working on it. The 11th ward has become powerless, so the main office is bolstering its efforts so the other wards don't go through the same thing. It is then determined that the ghouls are getting organized to crush the CCG. Amon is then instructed to find the rabbit. They then meet with a ghoul investigator who is dubbed the Problem Child, who turned out to be the boy who ran into Kaneki earlier. The boy then sucks on an officer's ear and introduces himself as a rank 3 investigator, Juzo. Juzo shows Amon his body stitch. Shinohara and Juzo take the binge eater case, as they note that the gourmet has been less active lately. Because of the doves, less people are coming to the coffee shop. Kaneki goes upstairs to feed Loser, the bird, and notices that Toka is acting differently since the day at the church, noting that she'll never be able to return to her previous state of being. A ghoul from the 11th ward, Banjo, then asks Kaneki and Toka about Rize. "Why can I smell Rize-san's scent on you?" Banjo loses it when he thinks Kaneki is Rize's boyfriend. Kaneki then knocks him out accidentally after he defends himself. Kaneki still wants to talk to this guy though, so he can learn about Rize's past. Another ghoul in the 11th ward, Ayato Kirishimi, is after Rize, and he originally grew up in the 20th ward. Yomo talks about the Aogiri tree, a gang who is led by the One-Eyed King. Banjo wakes up and asks Kaneki where Rize is. Kaneki says she left, so Banjo says if he ever sees her again, to tell her to run away. The Aogiri gang raided the 11th ward and are beginning to kill the doves. They are now after Rize for unknown reasons. Ayato bursts through the window and kicks Banjo. Toka walks in and immediately recognizes him. Kaneki then determines that this is Toka's younger brother. Since Kaneki smells like Rize, they want to take him to the 11th ward. Yomori slams Kaneki against the wall. Kaneki releases his Kakugan as Toka gets punched by her brother. As they fight, Ayato says that mother and father were weak for dying. After taking her down rather easily, Ayato instructs Banjo to bag up Kaneki so they can take him with them. After hearing about the incident, Yoshimura thusly shuts down Enteku due to the recent events. Shinohara and Juzo visit a crime scene in which ghouls were cut up into roughly 200 pieces. Shinohara then determines that it was Juzo's doing, and since it's prohibited to cause more pain than is necessary to a ghoul, Juzo will not be granted a Quinkei. Shinohara explains that Kagune are RC cells, which have been released outside the body. Essentially, they are liquid muscles. RC cells are stored in a sac called a kakuho, and once the cells are released, they can be hardened or softened at the will of the ghoul in the form of their Kagune. Thus, the Quinkei manufactures an artificial signal to the kakuho, which permits the use of the Kagune for the investigator's purposes. Depending on the type of ghoul, one can determine the location of the kakuho. Each Kagune type has its own advantages and disadvantages. Also, each Kagune has matchups which are either beneficial or detrimental to them, essentially working out like a game of rock, paper, scissors. Hide then worries about Kaneki's safety, since he won't answer his emails. Kaneki asks if Toka is okay, but Ayato kicks him in the side. Ayato then brings Kaneki to the purported leaders of the organization. Tatara shoves his arm into Kaneki, determining that Rize is dead. "Do you really think the thing transplanted into you was actually a kidney?" Tatara claims the manager, Yoshimura, is treating him like a bonsai tree for his entertainment. Afterwards, Kaneki is confused, since the manager has been so nice to him up until this point. Banjo then appears, saying they should run away together. Kaneki tells Banjo that Rize is not of this world anymore. They then meet with the members of the 11th Ward. Banjo says that Tatara and Noro are under the direct command of the One-Eyed King. The 4 other leaders in the 11th Ward are Yamori, the Bin brothers, and Ayato. The group plans on escaping on the 12th day when most of the leaders are gone. After they all escape, they plan on living in the 20th Ward. Special Class Investigator, Maruda, then announces he's working on the biggest case in history, and he'll need their help in the 11th Ward Countermeasure Unit. The CCG talks about Jason of the 13th Ward, a man who wears a hockey mask and is quite sadistic. It is decided that Amon will receive one of Mado's Quinkeis. Meanwhile, Kaneki dismantles dead bodies for the Aogiri tree, which sends a chill down his spine. A kid gets accused of stealing meat, so Banjo takes the blame, allowing himself to get beaten in the process. Later on, Banjo notes that he wants to help everyone escape before he's killed. Ayato, Nora, and Yamori are preoccupied, so it's time for them to escape the 11th Ward. Unfortunately, an Aogiri scout spots them, alerting the others. They kill him, but the damage is done, as one of the Bin brothers starts chasing the group. Banjo then uses his body as a shield, as he instructs his comrades to run away. Kaneki, however, cannot bear the burden of Banjo dying, so he goes back to help him out. Kaneki then faces off against the Bin brothers, noting how strong he is. The other Bin brother shows up as Yamori walks in with the heads of the other members of the 11th Ward. Yamori says that if Kaneki becomes his subordinate, he'll let the others go. The Bin brothers disagree with Yamori's way of handling things, so he threatens the two. The Bin brothers run away as Kaneki agrees to join up with Yamori. Pleased with the result, Yamori instructs Nico to lock up the others in the isolation cell. Yoshimura then tells the Anteiko employees that they won't be able to contact Kaneki from this point forward. Since the Aogiri tree is so powerful and the CCG is sending in additional men to the 11th Ward, it is too risky to save Kaneki at this time. Toka then volunteers to go alone to save Kaneki. Since Nishiki, Hinami, and Toka all volunteered to save Kaneki, Yoshimura and Yomo will provide protection, since that's in Teiku's policy.
Amore! Heartbreak.
Shu ate his own flesh to stay alive. Yoshimura invited him here to provide assistance in saving Kaneki. Toka is skeptical about the decision, but Yomo will keep a close eye on him. Itari and Uda show up as well. Yoshimura wants to save Kaneki, but he remarks that it may not be the same Kaneki they once knew. Over 1,000 police and CCG officers have encircled the Ghoul stronghold in the 11th Ward. The Ghouls are using snipers to keep the CCG at bay. The CCG are using Kagune bullets, called Q bullets, to take down the Ghouls. There's a deadlock right now, so Juzo steals Maruda's beloved motorcycle to jettison himself into the building and take out the snipers. You can enter now! We now go 10 days in the past, with Yamori taking Kaneki into his room. Yamori injects Kaneki with an RC suppressant fluid and proceeds to slowly torture him. When the effects of the shot wear off, he feeds Kaneki, allowing everything to regrow, and then he thusly repeats the process of torture. Back before Yamori was called Jason, he was tortured at a Ghoul internment camp. One day, he reversed the roles, and felt the thrill of becoming a human. Yamori tells Kaneki that Kanou, the doctor who saved him, is making ghouls with Rize. Yamori puts a centipede into his ear, and Kaneki begs to be killed. Rize then appears in his mind, touching his face ever so softly. His mother taught him not to hurt others, but to become a person getting hurt. Rize instructs him to look at the funeral service of his dad. His dad died when he was 4, and he was an avid reader, hence the reason Kaneki is enthralled with books. Kaneki remembers how kind and respectable his mother was. Due to overworking herself, she eventually passed away. Kaneki was accepted into his aunt's house thereafter, but she spited the child and didn't look after him. Nevertheless, his friend saved him, but Rize remarks that he might lose those precious friends. She then leaves as Yamori walks in. He forces him to choose who should die, mother or child. Kaneki is pissed that Yamori lied to him about saving the others. He then instructs Yamori to kill him instead. Nico then calls out Yamori for his excessive cruelty, but he proceeds to choke the daughter and impale the mother nonetheless. Rize says that all the bad luck in his life is his own fault. You got tricked by me, tampered with by the doctor, and turned into a monster. This is all your fault. Kaneki wishes that his mother would have chosen him over his aunt, even if it meant letting her die. Rize says his mother died and abandoned him due to her own weakness. To protect what he cares about, he must control his power. He thusly bites into Rize and accepts the ghoul inside of him. I am A ghoul. Amon looks like a savage as he destroys the ghouls. Ayato takes out some investigators, but is surprised by their sheer numbers. Yamori says that if you cannibalize a ghoul, your blood will become stronger. Kaneki then takes a bite out of Yamori's face. Kaneki escapes his restraints and says, "So if you get eaten, then that's just too bad?" After Yamori gets kicked down, he begins to transform. Yet Kaneki states that this is all just a bother. Ghouls that eat other ghouls are dubbed Kakuya, or awakened ones. Yamori is healing at an incredible rate, yet Kaneki is only getting started. Some ghouls attempt to escape, but Toka takes them down. The Anteiku squad is officially part of the battle. Ghouls have finely tuned senses that allow them to pick up on many important details. Kaneki and Yamori continue their intense battle. After knocking down Yamori, Kaneki begins feasting on his Kagune. Kaneki leaves Yamori in critical condition, telling him to die or be killed by the CCG. Kaneki returns to Banjo with a smile on his face. Kaneki then apologizes for not saving the mother and daughter, and vows to protect everyone from here on out. Yomo's group searches for Kaneki in Building 6. The group confronts a large group of CCG soldiers, which they take down. To increase their range, they split up into smaller groups. Ayato attacks Toka, so Nishiki uses his body to protect her. Ayato says that Kaneki is with the torturer, Yamori, and is already dead. Toka loses it, attacking her brother with fury. Juzo finds Yamori in a pathetic state. Juzo attacks Yamori, excited that he'll finally get his Quinque. The CCG has captured buildings 1 and 2, but then they encounter the one-eyed owl. 10 years ago, the owl cut down many investigators. A single investigator, Kishio, managed to snatch away both of the owl's arms. Maruda wants to avoid pointless deaths, so he challenges the owl with the fewest people possible. Shinohara wants to send Amon to Building 7, but Amon begs to fight against the owl. Shinohara then punches Amon, instructing him to follow orders. Shinohara then activates his wearable Quinque. Toka and Ayato continue their battle, with the younger brother sadistically biting into his sister. We then see a flashback of their father, who taught them to live within the human world. The family then found an injured bird and decided to take care of it. The father tells the two to take care of each other. He then goes out to scavenge for food, but is found by Shinohara and Mado. In real time, Toka calls out for her father. In the past again, Shinohara and Mado continue searching for Toka and Ayato. The two children wait for their father as Sato brings over some food. After the two refuse to eat, investigators barge in and throw a net on them. Toka activates her Kagune, giving them the opportunity to escape. Toka then decides she must protect her younger brother. As teenagers, the two came across Shu and were quick to anger. Yoshimura then had Toka attend school to calm her down a bit. Toka suggested the same for her brother, but he scoffed at this notion. Ayato henceforth left and caused havoc in the 14th Ward. In present time, Ayato looks to finish her off, but in a split second, Kaneki comes in to save her. Moments prior, Kaneki came in to help Nishiki with his opponents. In the now, Toka is surprised to see Kaneki's new form. Kaneki tosses Toka to Nishiki as he prepares to take on Ayato. Kaneki says he won't kill Ayato, just merely beat him half to death. The narrow passage prevents Ayato from spreading his wings, which puts him at a disadvantage. Kaneki holds Ayato upside down, as Ayato claims that close combat is his specialty. Shinohara and his comrades struggle against the one-eyed owl. Shinohara thinks of how Hirako was teamed up with Kishio. Hirako runs into the one-eyed owl, but gets bashed in the head, as Shinohara and his teammate attack simultaneously. The one-eyed owl regenerates quickly from the damage. Both investigators are using S-ring Quinques, but they are having little to no effect. They continue trading blows until they both decide to activate a Rada, a Quinque that comes from Toka and Ayato's father. Yomo then senses an ominous presence. Meanwhile, Ayato manages to deal damage on Kaneki. Kaneki then lies on the ground, asking Ayato to reveal his secret. Kaneki begins questioning his motives, as Ayato is reminded of his father, whom he hates. Kaneki says that when Toka attacked Yamori, Ayato protected her so she wouldn't be killed. And on the roof, when the two siblings were fighting, Ayato could have easily killed Toka if he wanted to. Kaneki swiftly knocks Ayato onto the ground. He then decides to break half of Ayato's bones, 103 in total, to quote-unquote half kill him. Kaneki announces each bone as he begins to break them. Does it hurt? I think Toka-chan has experienced more pain than that. Kaneki is surrounded by the CCG, yet Noro eliminates them expeditiously. Yomo, Uda, and Shu then arrive. Yomo instructs Kaneki to rest, yet the boy wants to fight some more. The three attack Noro, with Uda impaling him from behind. Yomo kicks off the head, yet the Kagune monster heals itself in no time flat. Noro pulls out a clock, grabs Ayato, and promptly leaves. Kaneki says he should walk home now. Amon continues his onslaughts of killing ghouls. Amon then remembers a pivotal conversation he had with Mado about humanity's inferiority compared to the ghouls. In real time, Amon has a weapon that produces the best effect of justice, and with this weapon, he defeats the Bin brothers. Afterwards, Amon stares at Kaneki from the building. After a brief glance, Kaneki walks away. Juzo, who was on the roof of the building, saw Kaneki too. Noro then arrives on the rooftop to witness Jason's corpse. He then walks away as Juzo waves goodbye. Two investigators continue fighting the one-eyed owl, yet if they continue at this pace, they'll be consumed by the Quinkei. The one-eyed owl then says there's no good reason to kill someone. The one-eyed owl then escapes. Though there are many injuries to the CCG soldiers, the owl did not kill anyone, just like 10 years ago. Maruta finds out that 98% of the Aogiri ghouls have been exterminated. Kishio then requests that Maruta relocate to the 23rd Ward, where the Aogiri have captured the ghoul detention center. It turns out that the incident at the 11th Ward was a diversion to accomplish this goal. We then see Soda and Nico observing the Aogiri base from far away. They are part of the clown ghouls, and they claim that they'll have the last laugh. Toka says that when they get back, they'll have to change Kaneki's hair color. I won't be returning to Anteku, says Kaneki. Kaneki has stuff to do and wants to become stronger. Banjo wants to be Kaneki's shield, with Shu being his sword. If Shu becomes unnecessary though, he'll be killed by Kaneki. This only arouses Shu's appetite even more though. Toka wants to travel with Kaneki too, but he says she needs to stay in school. See you, Toka-chan. Kaneki then stares up at the night sky, reminded of the words that Amon said long ago. Toka lies in bed, holding her parents' wedding ring, wishing that Kaneki would go to hell. 6 months after the battle with the Aogiri tree, Amon is appointed to top-class investigator, with Juzo being promoted to second-class investigator. Shinohara congratulates Amon on his promotion. Shinohara says that Mado made a request long ago to the main office to give Amon a promotion. Special class investigator, Kishio, then congratulates Amon and Juzo on their promotions. Juzo tells Amon that Kishio, Shinohara, and him worked together on an operation called Whack-A-Mole. Essentially, they hunted down ghouls in an underground maze in the 24th Ward. Amon then goes to Mado's grave to pay his respects. Just then, second-class investigator, Mado Akira, the daughter of his previous superior, announces she'll be his next subordinate. Shinohara formally announces Akira to the 20th Ward, as Saito remarks that they were in the same graduating class. Saito says that the Gourmet is now active in the 7th, 8th, and 18th wards. Akira then determines that the Gourmet's real target lies in the 6th ward. Later on, Amon tells Shinohara about the difficulties he's having with Akira, but Shinohara reassures him to keep on trying. Akira and Amon arrive at a ghoul restaurant, finding 50 to 60 ghoul corpses. Amon rules out the Gourmet based on the type of wounds, thinking it was the work of the eye patch ghoul, possibly in connection with the rabbit. Amon then asks Akira out for dinner, but she declines, stating it's past her curfew. Shinohara takes Juzo to the 1st Ward laboratory, where they make Quinkeis. Dr. Koitsu then explains the difference between a Kagune and a Quinkei. In ghouls, when the RC cells are released from the Kakuho, they undergo the formation stage, where the RC cells form a bond with its own cell class, the establishment phase, where the bounded up RC cells retain their current status for a certain period of time, and the decayed stage, where the RC cells start to break apart. A Quinkei, however, cannot reproduce the formation cycle. Therefore, it cannot vary in its shape willfully like a Kagune. Juzo then receives this Quinkei, which he names 13's Jason. Maruta then talks to the head chairman of the CCG about the Aogiri tree. Yoshitoka then tells Maruta that an anonymous person leaked information regarding the Aogiri hideout in the 11th Ward, so they'll attempt to locate him. Amon and Akira drive to the 23rd Ward, bickering back and forth most of the way. They then arrive at a ghoul asylum, where they meet Donato Porpora, Amon's foster father. Akira steps out so Amon can talk to Donato one-on-one. Akira remarks that Donato ran a Catholic orphanage in Japan, and he had a fondness for eating young children. Donato purports to know nothing of what happened with the Aogiri tree, though he was excited when the prospect of a feast was on the table. Amon gets nowhere with the questions, but Donato implores him to chase Alice instead of the White Rabbit. Mabuchi informs Maruta that the anonymous informant is a part-time student working in the 20th Ward. Maruta then interrogates Hide about the Aogiri tree, and he admits to being the informant. Hide has always had a habit for playing detective, and he just happened to track Yamori. Maruta then decides to have Hide work with Amon and Akira as an investigator assistant. And Teiku now has a new employee, Roma, who seems a bit clumsy. Roma talks about the devastation at the Ghoul restaurant that was led by the one-eyed ghoul. Meanwhile, Kaneki, Banjo, and Shu arrive at the Orca bar in the 6th Ward. They talk with Gil and his group about the Aogiri assault on Cochlea, the detention center in the 23rd Ward. Shachi, their leader, was released, but hasn't returned yet. Kaneki says that if he didn't obey the Aogiri, then he probably got eaten. He then deduces that Rize must have visited the 6th Ward at some point, and if they find Sachi, they'll find out more about Rize's real identity. One of the members then says there was an attack on the Ghoul restaurant in the 7th Ward. Kaneki determines that the target was Madame A. In a flashback, at the restaurant, Kaneki looks to exterminate the ghouls. Madame A looks to escape, but Kaneki gives chase. Despite this, he is stopped by 2 mysterious ghouls in black and white clothing. Kaneki then determines that Kanou is still conducting experiments using Rize. In the now, Gil attacks Kaneki for being involved in the restaurant attack. Kaneki takes care of business rather easily. At their base, Kaneki gives Hinami a haircut. Kaneki visits Itari to hand over a list of escapees from Cochlea. In exchange, he wants information regarding Kanou. She then states that Kanou was previously a coroner at the CCG. Kaneki then wonders what Kanou's true objective is. Nico from the Aogiri tree then walks in, giving Kaneki the chills. Nico states that he was only hanging out with Yamori and had no interest in the Aogiri tree. To build trust, Nico tells Kaneki that the Aogiri is composed mostly of ghouls from the 24th Ward. Their goal is to smoke out the liar, but he doesn't elaborate further on this, since he doesn't know. Nico then reveals the identity of the One-Eyed King to the shock of Kaneki. Itari then reveals that the rabbit has been killing doves recently. In the 7th Ward, the rabbit obliterates 2 investigators. A man in a mask fights Banjo, tossing him off of a building in the process. Kaneki then takes off his mask and saves Banjo. Hinami admits to staying with Kaneki to help keep him company, since he always looks so sad. Shu then gives flowers to Hinami and Banjo. Kaneki comes in and the 3 debrief each other on the information they've gathered up until this point. Shu then recommends they head to the 20th Ward to investigate Kanou's general hospital. At the hospital, Kaneki finds out from the nurse that Dr. Kanou is on a business trip to Germany. At school, Hinami embraces Toka with a warm hug. Hinami then asks Toka if she wants to see Kaneki. Before she responds, Yuriko hands her a present from a man that was wearing an eye patch. Toka runs outside but is unable to locate Kaneki. Banjo looked into the traveler list at the airport and never found Kanou's name. Meanwhile, Dr. Kanou speaks to Shiro about his failed test subjects. He thusly must wait for Rize to generate another Kakuho. Amon, Akira, and Hide wonder if the Black Rabbit is the same one they've been chasing all this time. Based on Hide's observations, he thinks there are 2 different people. Shinohara then comes in and mentions a story with the girl dying under the beams. Dr. Kanou henceforth transplanted her organs into Ken Kaneki, but at the moment, no one knows where either of them are. Hide then admits that Kaneki is his best friend. Meanwhile, Kaneki plans on capturing the nurse from the hospital to interrogate her about Kanou. 3 ghouls in white suits beat them to the punch, so Kaneki drops down to stop them. The lead ghoul cries over Yamori's death, as Sachi nearly comes crashing down on Kaneki. Sachi's speed and strength is impressive. Naki then slashes Shu's face, as Gagi and Guge attack Banjo. Kaneki activates his Kagune, which looks exactly like Rize's. Sachi does the same, as he crashes his fist into Kaneki's gut. While Kaneki spews blood out of his mouth, Sachi and the other members escape with the nurse. Madame reminisces about how she met Kanou. Thinking she could get premium meat, she attacked the doctor, but was stopped by a mysterious figure. Kanou asks if she wishes to be an owner, and from then on, she lived a luxurious lifestyle. In the now, Shu killed her children, and looks to trap her in a shipping container. Korono, one of the one-eyed ghouls, grabs Madame and looks to escape. She's then cornered and is forced to abandon Madame to save herself. Kaneki then looks to begin the interrogation by threatening her with a centipede. Meanwhile, Shinohara and Juzo arrive at Inteku, looking for Kaneki. Shinohara speculates that the binge eater is a young female ghoul. Toka goes over to take their order, and Shinohara questions her about Kaneki. Juzo then asks her if she vomited. Yoshimura then intervenes, answering several questions about Kaneki. Tatora finishes up interrogating the nurse about Kano's whereabouts. He then tosses her foot to Naki. Kanou owns an abundance of real estate and went to Germany as a research assistant to study ghouls. Amon contemplates Shinohara's theory about Rize, Kaneki, and Kanou. He also thinks about for what reason was a ghoul's organs transplanted into a human. Amon determines that either Kanou or Kaneki are Alice. Meanwhile, Kaneki trains at their stronghold, realizing he's got to become much stronger if he wants to take on the Aogiri tree. Kaneki requests Shu's sword for training, which he happily obliges. We then see a brief flashback of Korono and Shiro when they were adolescents. Kaneki's group, along with Madame, then arrive at Kanou's mansion. Kaneki then finds a picture of the family that lived here previously. Shu remarks that the mother and father were killed by a ghoul, with the children witnessing the entire incident. Kaneki threatens Madame for more information. Meanwhile, Dr. Kanou, Shiro, and Kuro watch the Kaneki group. Please welcome them. Graciously, of course. Alright, Papa. As the Kaneki group wander through the basement, they take out one of Kanou's failed experiments. Shiro and Kuro then block the group's progress. Kaneki runs ahead, with Shu battling the twins. In the midst of the battle, Naki accidentally halts the twins from attacking Shu. Naki claims he'll take Kanou, as Banjo is surprised to see Edo. At a dead end, Kaneki is confronted by Sachi. Kaneki aims for his eyes, since that's a ghoul's weak point. But Sachi dodges this. Naki clashes with Shu. In the chaos, Banjo heads towards Kaneki to serve as his shield. Kaneki and Sachi continue their battle. Despite this, Kaneki is pissed that his opponent was holding back. Kaneki continues his rage-fueled attacks with his Kagune. Edo then reminds the twins that Kanou is not their real father, and nothing will ever change that. Edo dodges their moves with ease and claims that Kanou is using them. Banjo enters the scene, with Edo removing his ribs without him even noticing. Kaneki wants to cannibalize Sachi to become stronger, but the hulking man prevents this from happening. Kaneki can't believe that Sachi has taken so little damage up until this point. Dr. Kanou then walks in and says, "Have you been taking your medicine, Kaneki-kun?" Rize stares up at Kaneki. Kanou considers Kuro and Shiro failures, remarking that Kaneki is his ultimate creation. He created the one-eyed ghouls to break free from the birdcage that is holding back the rest of the world. Kaneki calls the doctor a psycho for what he's doing. Kanou, however, cares not for Kaneki's criticisms. He then requests Kaneki to join him so he can show him the hidden truth. For example, Yoshimura gave birth to the Aogiri tree. Kaneki is at a loss for words. Just then, Yomo comes crashing in with Rize in his hands. He tells him to choose his own path as he escapes. Kaneki heads towards Kanou but is cut off by Sachi. Kanou looks forward to the day when they can meet again as Kaneki fights off the various test subjects. The CCG begins their assault by infiltrating the lab. The twins remember Juzo as he looks to eliminate them. Naki and Shu forge a temporary alliance to fight off the doves. Kaneki then attacks Shinohara in the form of a centipede. Kaneki is a half Kakuya, as Shinohara reveals his Arata armor. Akira battles with Naki, impaling him with her Chimera Quinque, which combines two different types of Kagune. Shu then interferes. As Juzo battles with the twins, his abdomen gets cut open. In the past, the twins were taken care of at the CCG Academy Junior. It is there that they met Rei, whom would eventually be known as Juzo. Rei skipped classes and possibly murdered cats in his spare time. In his youth, he was raised by ghouls. While talking to Amon one day, the twins found out that Kasuka, Mado's wife, was killed by the one-eyed ghoul. The twins then verified that Rei was the one killing all the animals at the facility. In real time, Juzo stabs Kuro's left eye. Juzo proceeds to stab Kuro multiple times, showing no remorse. Juzo then uses 13th Jason to gash into Shiro. Kuro grabs Shiro, intending to bring her to Kanou to be saved. While dodging the CCG, Kaneki determines that to live is to eat others. He then recalls the torture experiments with Yamori, as Shinohara notes that this is the craziest ghoul he's ever encountered. Shu remarks that Kaneki has only eaten ghouls in the past 6 months to gain power, but as a result, he's losing his consciousness. Akira then releases a CRC grenade that inhibits Kagune. Naki kicks Akira onto the ground, but is stopped by Amon's ferocious attack. Shu and the three then retreat for the time being. Shinohara battles with Kaneki. We then find out that he studied under Iba and Mado. His two greatest accomplishments were taking down the demon Yamada and using the Arata corpse picker, which came from a ghoul who cannibalized his own kind. Kaneki looks to be defeated after Shinohara's attack. However, he then summons another Kagune. Kaneki, in the blink of an eye, gashes into Shinohara like a wild beast. Shu bickers with Banjo's underlings as the man himself comes back into the fold. Amon then notices Shiro, but she runs off before he has a chance to talk to her. Amon and Akira then arrive at the room with Kaneki as they see him devouring Shinohara. "One-eyed!" screams Amon. Amon questions Kaneki on why he was crying that night they first fought. Amon then remembers the time he found out that Donato killed young children. Juzo then pierces Kaneki with some knives. He then activates 13's Jason to gash into Kaneki. Amon looks to finish things off as Kaneki puts his head on the ground and says he doesn't want to eat anymore. He then uses this momentary lapse to escape. Juzo wants to give chase, but Amon says Shinohara comes first. Kaneki then runs into Banjo and sticks his hand straight through his chest. Kaneki knocks the others down as he begins to lose his mind. He then realizes his mistake and apologizes profusely for what he's done. Luckily, Banjo's Kagune heals his fatal wound. Before saving anyone else, please, I want you to be saved first. Shinohara manages to survive the ordeal. Juzo makes light of the situation, which pisses off Amon to no end. Meanwhile, Kanou watches the entire proceedings with Edo. Kuro brings in Shiro, yet Kanou states that the damage is irreversible and to let her go. Outside, Yomo stares at the mansion as he holds Rize's body in his hands. Though Kaneki is down on himself, Shu reminds him that he'll always be by his side. Kaneki then asks Hinami if she wants to go to a book signing with him. Shinohara is recovering in the hospital. After talking about Kaneki, Aiwa shows Shinohara side-by-side pictures of the one-eyed owl from 10 years ago and the one they recently fought, and they look different, suggesting that maybe there's two different owls. Kaneki and Hinami go to the book signing, as the author, Takatsuki, is running late because she overslept. Kaneki and Hinami reach Takatsuki, with the boy expressing his deep knowledge for the author's work. As they leave, Hide walks up and has her sign the book for his friend, Kaneki. Takatsuki then says she wants to write her next book about ghouls. Amon and Sato discuss the incidents at the mansion as Akira walks in. After some work, the three decide to go out for dinner. The two younger investigators appear to be drunk, much to Amon's surprise. Hoji then calls an angry Sato and requests him to handle a leak with his reports. Sato leaves, and Akira begins talking about her father's obsession for enacting revenge on the one-eyed who killed his wife. She then blames Amon for not being at her father's side when he died. Amon Kotaru, I hate you. Amon blames his lack of power, which is why he vows to protect those who his senior cared about. Akira then passes out. Kaneki then visits Uda, asking him about the secrets of Yoshimura, Yomo, and Inteku. Amon drops off Akira at her apartment. When he gets ready to leave, she grabs his hand. She then proceeds to take off her pants and begins to cough. So Amon brings her some medicine. She then grabs him again and begins crying about her father. Amon proceeds to perform push-ups all night long, berating his own inexperience. In the morning time, Akira then jokingly labels Amon a pervert. She then apologizes for the incident and goes off to work. Long ago, Uda managed the 4th ward with an iron fist. Yomo roamed into the ward one day, and it was easy to see that they were evenly matched. Through their fighting, they gradually opened up to one another. Uda discusses the actions in the 4th ward, noting that Kishio is the source of their troubles. Uda then determines that Yomo might be connected to Kishio in some fashion. Yomo reveals that his older sister was killed by Kishio, and he wants to exact revenge on him. The ghouls then ambush the investigators, with Hirako attacking Uda. The fight is then put on pause when Kishio arrives, angering Yomo to no end. Kishio blocks Yomo's attack. Kishio then fires an electrical shock at Yomo, noting how fast he is. Yomo looks for a fatal blow, but then Hirako comes flying in to slash down the ghoul. A ghoul in black then steps in to save Yomo's life, the mysterious ghoul being Yoshimura. Afterwards, Yomo worked at Inteku and learned various things from Yoshimura. It is now time that Kaneki goes to speak to Yoshimura himself. Shu then takes Hinama out for drinks as they talk about Kaneki. Shu then heads to the bathroom as Takatsuki comes in to talk to Hinami. She remarks that Kaneki is a frightened person on the inside, despite his tough exterior. Takatsuki is helping Hinami because it may be a good source of material in the future for an upcoming book. Though she'll still help the girl out as well. Akira laughs at Amon's face when he eats some spicy curry at work. Takatsuki then arrives at the CCG to provide information about the underground facility. Amon then interviews Takatsuki. She says that the owner of the underground facility managed a trading company called Sphinx Trading. According to the writer, Sphinx was dissolving ghouls into a liquid and packaging them into bottles to sell to the CCG, which they use to make quinkes. Incidentally, the owner of the underground facility is owned by the CCG, and the company's president is Nanao Yasuhisa, the father of Shiro and Kuro. All the pieces are falling into place for Amon as he wonders what the CCG's true existence entails. Kaneki then greets Yomo at his shipping container/home. Yomo tells Kaneki it's for his own good to never see Rize again. Kaneki angrily yells at Yomo until a noise captures his attention. He heads over to the noise and finds Rize in a shipping container. Rize has been starved deliberately by Yomo just to barely keep her alive, leaving her in a sickly state. The Rize he's staring at now is completely different from the one he once knew. If that Rize doesn't exist anymore, then Kaneki states he's just a normal human. Yomo has watched over Kaneki all this time and claims that he's always been fighting with his own strength and not Rize's. Toka tells Yoshimura that she wants to become a teacher. She then goes out to retrieve coffee beans with Nishiki. On the street, they run into Hinami and Shu. Hinami says they've been discussing things that they can do for Kaneki. Nishiki calls Shu the devil, but he reminds them that they've done nothing for Kaneki up until this point. After Nishiki and Toka pick up the beans, they head to the university. Nishiki jets as Toka explores the university by herself. She comes across a missing poster with Kaneki's face on it. Hide then walks in and recognizes Toka. Hide tells Toka that Kaneki changed after his mother died. Toka yells that Kaneki is okay and he's definitely out there somewhere. Hide then gives Toka useful advice, revealing that Kaneki touches his chin when he's hiding something. A special class investigator meeting is then headed up by Yoshitoki. They talk about the centipede ghoul and confirm that there are indeed two different owls. Kaneki finally returns to Anteku. The leader of the Aogiri tree, One-Eyed King, no, One-Eyed Owl, is your child? In a flashback, Yomo says that Yoshimura is covering up for the real One-Eyed Owl and is able to mimic the owl's appearance. Yoshimura begins by talking about a ghoul named Kuzan, who joined an organization to serve as their cleaner. He killed humans, ghouls, and rival organizations. In a coffee shop, he met Yukina, whom he immediately began to open his heart up to. She accepted him, knowing he was a ghoul, and they eventually had a baby together. As it just so happens, Yukina was a journalist gathering information about Kuzan's organization. The organization caught wind of this, forcing Kuzan to eliminate her, which was his last job. He then left his daughter in the 24th ward with her mother's diary. Years later, his child emerged in the form of the One-Eyed Owl. After suffering a deadly wound at the CCG, Kuzan then served as a One-Eyed Owl substitute. And now we know the rest of the story about how Kuzan would eventually become Yoshimura. Yoshimura implores Kaneki to save other lonely souls, including his child. Kaneki leaves the shop as Toka runs outside to confront him. Kaneki tells Toka that Yoshimura requested him that he come back to Anteku. Kaneki wants to protect everyone by removing any interfering weeds. You're just afraid of being alone, aren't you? What you want is nothing more than self-satisfaction. It's all so stupid. Toka attacks Kaneki with a flurry of kicks and punches. Trash like you should stay out of Anteku. Toka knocks him down when he's distracted. Why did you have to change? Toka leaves without another utterance. Kaneki returns to the stronghold, announcing that he wants to disband the group. Kaneki admits that he was wrong, so he thusly wants to return to Anteku with everyone. They all lend their support to Kaneki. Though Kaneki doesn't trust Shu, he still wishes to use his sword for future missions. At the CCG, Amon gives Akira a keychain gift, which is the first gift she's received from a man besides her father. Yoshitoki asks Maruta to be his vice commander at their next mission. Yoshitoki then requests the CCG chairman's approval for an owl execution plan, the target being Anteku in the 20th ward. In the past, Juzo performed circus acts to please Big Madame. She then tortured the boy to make him more obedient. He then served as her scraper, which made him lose his value for human worth. Big Madame dressed Juzo like a girl and even had him castrated. The doves took down Big Madame and saved Juzo, but his morals were warped from that point forward. Juzo henceforth caught a CCG staff member skinning cats, so the Bureau merely blamed him for the incidents. In real time, Shinohara informs Juzo about the owl mission. Sato is nervous about the upcoming owl execution operation. He is then prompted to write a will if the worst should happen. Everyone else writes their wills as Kishio keeps his blank. Maruta then informs Hide about the upcoming mission at Inteku, as the boy agrees to write his own will. Sato recalls that the owl has 6 to 8 kakuho, which scares him to no end. He then writes that he doesn't want to die on his will. Akira receives her Quinkei at the CCG lab, as they're still working on Amon's dojima. Afterwards, the two investigators head to the graveyard. Both of Akira's parents worked in the 24th ward, as it was there that her mother died at the hands of the owl. Akira wants revenge, but Amon instructs her not to act rashly. Akira then looks to kiss him, yet he covers her mouth with his hand. At Inteku, Kaneki then overhears two investigators talking about the owl suppression mission. Kaiko, one of the members of the V organization that Yoshimura previously worked for, claims that the equilibrium is collapsing due to the Aogiri tree. Kaiko demands that Yoshimura hand over the child and pledge loyalty to the V. "I have no child," replies Yoshimura. Kaneki alerts Yomo to the large-scale operation against Anteku. Yomo urges him to go into hiding, as the shop can be rebuilt. The Anteku staff destroys all the documents at Yoshimura's behest, as he stares at a picture of Yukina and his child. It is then that Yoshitoka officially commences the owl suppression mission. Kaya and Enji wait for the CCG at the entrance of Anteku. The apes and the black doggers then appear to the surprise of the CCG. The owl arrives on the scene, slaughtering countless CCG officers. Kaneki and Toka hear the announcement about the attack on the 20th ward. Squad 2 Captain, Mogen, launches an attack with the Angel Beat to destroy multiple ghouls. Kaya then confronts Squad 3 Captain Chu. The owl terrorizes everyone in sight. Hoji fires a blast that hits the owl as Shinohara and Aiwa activate Arata's armor. Kaneki and Nishiki talk about the end of Anteku. Nishiki claims he'll meet with Kimi for the last time and then leave the 20th ward. Kaneki then speaks of a small antique coffee cup that was never used in the store, possibly waiting for someone's arrival. Kaneki wants to join the battle, but Shu violently urges him not to do so. Kaneki disarms him and says, "I don't want to be unable to do anything." Mogen misses Enju with High Mind. Kaya and Chu continue their battle. Kaya looks poised for the final blow, but then is gashed by Araka. Amon leads Squad 4 against the apes, as Squad 1, with Akira and Sato, fight numerous ghouls nearby. The owl continues battling the special class investigators. Juzo then flies in on Maruta's motorcycle to gash into the owl. Yomo tells Toka to pack her things and leave, since Anteku is finished. Kaya and Enji committed heinous crimes in the past, hence they're looking for their punishment. Toka realizes that everything that made her happy is vanishing before her eyes. Toka wants to go back to the manager, but Yomo reiterates that she will die. Kaya ends up on a balcony as an old woman comes out. Chu shoots multiple blasts their way as Kaya uses her body to shield the woman. Kaya releases her Kagune in a weakened state. She charges in at full force, but is eventually cut down. Hirako is concerned about Chu's disregard for civilian life. Hirako recommends they send her to Cochlea, but Chu has no interest in letting her live any longer. Kaneki then intervenes to preserve Kaya's life. Mugen lands a critical hit on Enji, leaving him unable to defend himself. Kaneki saves the day again as he grabs Enji and runs. Kaneki wishes to save the manager, as Kaya warns him that Hirako is quite powerful. Kaneki takes down Chu's squad and returns to Kaya. Kaneki decides to help out Yoshimura and meet up with Kaya after the battle is done. Yoshitoka hears of Kaneki's actions and decides to dispatch Squad 4 to confront him. "Can you let me pass through?" "Obviously not." Amon initiates demolition phase on his Quinkei as Kaneki releases his Kagune. Kaneki wishes to know Amon's name. "My name is Amon Kotaru!" Word of the centipede ghoul reaches Yoshitoka's ears, as this was not part of his calculation. In light of the situation, Hide is becoming more and more nervous. Kaneki destroys Amon's Quinkei, just like their first battle. But just then, Dr. Chigiyu arrives in the nick of time to toss Amon his dojima and an auto-equipping Arata. Amon knocks Kaneki back with his incredible speed. The burden of the Arata is immense, but Amon may very well be able to bring out its latent abilities. Kaneki undergoes another transformation. Yoshimura struggles on, getting his left arm cut off by Juzo. However, Juzo lost his right leg in the process. Amon has lost everything important to him, and worries what he might lose next. Kaneki then slices off Amon's right arm in the blink of an eye. Amon thinks of his parents and Donato as he collapses to the ground. Abruptly, Amon's Quinkei obliterates Kaneki's abdomen, where Rize's Kakuho was transplanted. His body won't regenerate as he screams for the manager. The investigators continue tearing down the owl. Hoji steps in to land a critical blow on Yoshimura. Messages are received that the owl has been defeated. Just then, though, the one-eyed owl appears in its monstrous form. The one-eyed owl terrorizes the special investigators. HQ then orders anyone with a Quinque to converge on the one-eyed owl. Sato, however, heads towards Amon. Kaneki is in critical condition inside the sewer. He hallucinates about Rize and Yamori, telling them to get out of his body. Yo Kaneki, what's with the get-up? That in style these days? Kaneki believes this is another illusion. I already know, man. Who cares about that? Let's just go home already. Hide wants to help Kaneki out and asks if he could just fight one more time. The one-eyed owl's onslaught continues. She then cuts off Shinohara's foot and chows it down. Juzo reminisces about his time with Shinohara and how he helped him become the officer he is today. Juzo screams as he watches his mentor get stabbed in the abdomen. Kaneki's wounds have healed and he has the taste of blood in his mouth, though Hide is mysteriously missing. Kaneki then walks in the direction of the CCG's Reaper, Arima Kishio. The scene before Kaneki's eyes was that of death. Yoshitoka wonders how the one-eyed owl could have bypassed the containment net, since there were no holes. Meanwhile, Juzo puts up resistance as he eventually collapses from exhaustion. Mogen and Chu's squads then confront the one-eyed owl. Meanwhile, Kisho stabs Kaneki in his Kakugan. Kaneki experiences pain and fear that he's never experienced before. Kaneki's Kagune pulls out the Quinque, yet he begins to ramble incoherently. It's so pretty! Autumn! You can't go any further than V14. Kaneki desperately attempts to get one attack through to kill Kishio. He destroys Kisho's defensive barrier, yet the Reaper strikes once again. I'll need a new Quinque. Kaneki enters a dreamlike state where he sees his mother. Kaneki realizes that he and his mom were afraid of solitude, hence the reason they go out of their way to not lose anybody in their lives. A previous version of Kaneki thanks his stronger self for saving him countless times. Kaneki's consciousness then turns to ash as he remembers a clown laughing. Kaneki continues counting down by sevens as Kisho stands over his body. Sato grabs a weakened Amon, telling him not to die. Tatara enters the scene, approaching Sato. Amon stands up, telling Sato to run. Tatara grabs Sato and chucks him towards Noro, who cuts off one of his arms. With intense rage, Amon charges in toward Tatara. The one-eyed owl's massacre continues. Hirako fights valiantly, but is knocked back. Just then, Squad Zero enters the scene, with Kisho in charge. Kisho combines attack with defense, surprising his fellow officers. Kisho manages to slice his opponent, so the one-eyed owl consumes Yoshimura in one gulp, and subsequently retreats. After escaping Kisho, the one-eyed owl pukes out Yoshimura and exits her Kakuya. And of course, the girl is none other than Edo Yoshimura, Kenzo's daughter. She was besides himself that Kaneki is gone. With an extermination rate of 99%, the operation has ended. Shinohara is now in a vegetative state, and his mind will never return. Amon died during the battle, and although Akira holds it in at first, she eventually breaks down in tears. Kaneki's group subsequently searches for hideouts. Kanou bemoans the loss of Kaneki, yet Edo says that they can simply remake another Kaneki. We then see Yoshimura in a tank, being preserved for unknown reasons. Juzo is then visited by Shinohara's wife, who reveals that Shinohara viewed the boy as his own child. The chairman of the CCG reminds Yoshitoka and Kisho that they must defeat the one-eyed owl. Kaneki's profile is erased on the blacklist, as Kisho receives a new Quinque. We then find out that Uda, Romo, Nico, Soda, and Itari are part of the organization known as the Clowns. Anteiku is gone and Kaneki is still missing. Yet despite this, she has faith that he'll return to Anteiku. Akira then visits her father's grave, saying she is now a rank 1 investigator. She is now working under Kishio. Good afternoon, Mado Akira rank 1. Sasaki rank 3. Arima special class instructed me from tomorrow onward to learn investigation skill from rank 1. And with that, guys, that officially ends the Tokyo Ghoul timeline video. Now, of course, that's not the end of the story. We still have Tokyo Ghoul Re. Alright, so what's going on, guys? As a follow-up video to my Tokyo Ghoul timeline, we're going to cover the timeline for Tokyo Ghoul Re. Now, as many of you know from the first video, this was a manga produced by Sui Ishida, and it had a run from October of 2014 to July of 2018. So it just recently finished in the last 3 years. It also had an anime adaptation as well, 2 seasons. However, the reception for that was not so good. But for the purposes of this video, we're just gonna go over the manga timeline, and without further ado, let's get started. Slipping through the crowds, feeding on human flesh, they appear human, but they are not. They are called ghouls. Heise looks for Mato as he finds out she stepped out. Toru, a new recruit, bumps into a member of Hirako's squad, who are competing against him to capture ghouls. Akira mentions that their squad is lagging behind, and it's Heise's job to cultivate the next Kisho Arima. Akira has high expectations for Heise, and doesn't want to be let down. Toru informs Heise that Yuri and Shirazu are after the Torso Ghoul. Heise is worried about his inexperienced officers and wants to stop them. Heise runs into one of Hirako's subordinates, requesting information so he can protect his team. After being denied, Heise and Toru head back to the main office. Yuri then abruptly stops a cab, due to the smell of blood on the driver. The cab driver releases his Kagune and begins attacking Yuri. Rank 3 investigator Shirazu then arrives, whom Yuri dubs is a pain in the ass. Shirazu gets impaled, and it looks like he's dead, until his eyes turn red. Yuri attacks with his Kagune and reveals that they are Quinks. The ghouls attack back, but Heise intervenes to save them. Quinks are experimental humans implanted with the powers of ghouls, and their squad leader is rank 1 investigator, Heise Sasaki. While Yuri thought he captured the Torso Ghoul, it turned out the real Torso Ghoul was savoring his catch of the day. Heise is scolded for not killing the ghoul from the cab. Hiraku tells the Mato squad and the Shimoguchi squads to jointly handle the Torso investigation. After the meeting, Akira punches Heise in the gut for defending the ghouls in the meeting. Heise then talks to Kuramoto, who speaks of Orochi the serpent, who's hunting other ghouls. Heise goes back to his home that he shares with the other Quinks. Yuri wants to leave the Heise squad and ascend in the ranks. Shirazu, however, looks ready to fight. Hori, a freelance photographer, tells them she has valuable information and wants to be compensated, though her compensation involves getting a personal item from Heise to deliver to her client, who turns out to be Shu. Shirazu and Yuri indicate they want to work alone on the Torso investigation, so Heise embraces the challenge. Heise then visits Donato at Colclia in the 23rd Ward. Donato suspects that the Torso is a cab driver, which is why Yuri is spending an exorbitant amount of money on cab rides. Donato tells Heise to return alone next time to talk about another case. Heise then has a dream where someone else tells him that he's the same as Donato. Hinami then boards a cab with a message from the tree, telling the Torso that he's been marked by the doves for feeding too much. Hinami then remarks that the Quinkses sound like Kaneki. Hori hands Yuri and Shirazu photos of the Torso Ghoul that she took with her own camera. Heise is making no progress in the Torso investigation. The Torso hunts down people with a surgical scar on their body, so they'll concentrate their efforts on surgical hospitals. Toru then sees a woman leaving a hospital, and she's about to board a cab. Toru enters the cab in her steed and eventually finds herself pinned down with her shirt opened, revealing the scars on her body. When Toru is taken into the CCG Academy, she requested to be a guy. In the now, Toru slices the Torso with her Quinke. He retaliates as Shirazu and Yuri begin to chase him down. Police join in the chase and even set up a roadblock. The Torso exits the car as Shirazu and Yuri release their Kagunes. It looks like they've won, but then Orochi, the serpent ghoul, appears. Orochi easily blocks Shirazu's attacks. He proceeds to kick Yuri onto the ground, destroying his Kagune. Orochi calls Shirazu's attack pathetic. In a flashback, Yuri's father was killed by the one-eyed owl. In the now, Yuri chomps onto his own arm to revive his Kagune. Orochi attacks, yet Heise protects his comrades. They go back and forth until Orochi kicks him down. Heise wonders what to do as Kaneki calls him weak and says that he needs him. He instructs Toru to contact Mato as he regenerates his Kagune. Heise shatters Orochi's Kagune, yet the serpent ghoul quickly regenerates and takes the upper hand. Heise instructs his subordinates to stay back as he begins to look more and more deranged. Orochi is then impaled and hits the ground. Heise then stands over him, finding out the serpent is Nishiki. Kaneki wonders what's going on as Nishiki escapes. Hirako calls off the investigation. The investigators then subdue the half-ghoul, with Akira sniping him with an RC suppressant bullet. The rules to handling Heise are as follows. Heise is to be treated as a human, and in the event his Kagune becomes uncontrollable, he shall be eradicated. The Quinks stare on in awe, jealousy, and fear. Heise then is summoned to Kishio. Heise slaps Yuri and instructs him to run in the future to preserve his life. Heise relieves Yuri of his duty as squad leader. "But you're a ghoul!" Shirazu kicks Yuri in the stomach, defending Heise's actions in the process. Shirazu is then appointed to the squad leader. Heise and Kishio discuss the matter while sparring with each other. Heise mentions the voice in his head, but now that he has Kishio and Akira as pseudo-parents, he's quite happy. Akira mentions to Heise that Dotorso's house is quite the unusual scene. Just then, Shimaguchi's squad reports that they've been attacked by the rabbit. Akira believes the Black Rabbit, along with Hinami, killed her father. Yuri visits Shiba, requesting a stronger Kagune. Shiba explains that the Quink's procedure implants a Kakuho inside of a human body. However, the effectiveness is modulated with 5 frame levels to minimize the risk to the user. The gate is at F2 or 40% for all the Quinkses. Yuri then encounters Takomi, whom he's pissed at because he feels like Aiwa, Takomi's father, abandoned his father. Ayato then questions Torso if Sasaki was with the Quinks. Shirazu, Toru, and Heise are on the case called the Nutcracker. They enter a coffee shop to call it a day as Toka comes up and welcomes them. The three leave the shop, yet Shirazu and Toru wonder why Heise is acting so weird. At their home, Heise and Shirazu break into Saiko's room with their Kagunes. Yuri tells Saiko that the CCG has plans to relieve her of her duties. Saiko doesn't fit well with the squad, but Yuri plans on using her to reclaim his leadership role. The next morning, Shirazu stays behind to wake up Saiko as the other three meet up with Juzo's right-hand man, Hanbei. As Hanbei goes over the connection between the Nutcracker, the Madams, and the Gourmet Club, Heise reminisces about the coffee shop. He almost sternly approached him, but didn't say a word. As Heise tasted the coffee, he began to cry as Toka handed him a napkin. Juzo then comes into the meeting room and immediately puts his hands into Heise's pockets. That's because when they previously worked together, Heise would keep snacks in his pockets for Juzo. Shirazu then walks in with a sleeping Saiko. Hanbei states that the Nutcracker feeds on men's testicles and serves as a human trafficker. The Quink squad then sits in a cafe as the Nutcracker seems to have caught on to them and leaves early. At home, Yuri hands Heise a surgical consent form so that he can have a frame release and unlock more of the power from his Kakuho. Heise will think about it and tells him that he still has room to grow. Kane tells Hori that Master Shu got no reaction from the underwear, and he suffered depression ever since Kaneki left him. Kanai warns Hori that although she was Shu's classmate, she could kill her at any time. Hori has known Shu for 9 years and does not seem turned off by Shu's interesting feeding habits. Hanba suspects that the Nutcracker is working with Big Madame, which may necessitate help from the Ghoul Countermeasure Unit 2. They leave the meeting as Yuri undergoes his frame release surgery without consulting his teammates. Heise visits Donato, and Donato asks him about his memory. Heise says that he may have known Orochi. Heise goes back to the coffee shop and tells Toka he's a ghoul investigator, as he thinks about a ghoul who could possibly unlock the gate to his memory. Heise meets up with the Quinks and decides they need to dress up as women to catch the Nutcracker. Heise and the Quink squad visit the nightclub in the 13th Ward. Heise tells Shirako that while Saiko never wanted to be an investigator, she was one of the 6 to pass the Q aptitude test. Her mother, thusly, for monetary reasons, forced her into becoming an investigator, despite the risks. Shirazu wonders if Heise regains his memory if he'll quit the commission. Heise says no as Toru comes up and says she received a job from the Nutcracker, as intended. Across the nightclub, Heise is recognized by Nico and Roma, who want to see the old Kaneki again. Juzo and Heise then visit Matsuru Washi, the eldest son of Yoshitoki and the brain behind Squad 2. Matsuri and his father are not on good terms, and he's skeptical about the Quinks. The Ghoul Countermeasure Institute was founded as a state organization, with the Washu family being recognized as the greatest of all the ghoul hunters. Matsuri wants Toru to attend the auction alone, since he considers her expendable. Juzo convinces Matsuri to accompany Toru to the auction. 3 senior officers, Akira, Hirako, and Shimaguchi, then come in for details for the operation of the auction sweep. Akira tells Heise that everyone has lost someone at some point, so he has to be stronger and kill ghouls. Edo then approaches Ayato, saying that Tatora wants him to provide security at the next auction. Ayato goes to Hinami, who analyzes sound. The doves are concerned about the floppies too, which confuses Torso. The Q squad trains together, as Yuri recalls going to Yoshitoki to authorize his frame release. Yoshitoki then consulted Kisho, who saw no problems with the procedure. Kanai then says she'll kill Heise if he really is Ken Kaneki. Juzo trains Toru in using multiple daggers. Toru mentions her fears, yet Juzo explains that fear is a friend of exceptional people. Hanba, Shirazu, and Saiko visit Shinohara, who's been slipping in and out of consciousness for the past 2 years. While leaving, the two run into Toka from the coffee shop. It is now November 11th, the night of the auction. Toru then wakes up in an unknown location as she loses consciousness. Big Madame is excited for her new little human pet. The auction begins, with the clowns being the host for the night. The clowns bring out the first item, Yoshiki Okura, the actor. A super wealthy ghoul, Croquet Mansua, has a bidding war with Big Madame. As the night goes on, they bring Toru to the center stage, and since she's a one-eyed ghoul, the opening bid starts at 10 million. The action comes down between Kanou and Big Madame. Later on, Toru is escorted away by the Nutcracker, as she's happy that Toru fetched such a high price. The next item is presented to the audience, as Big Madame seems to have noticed who it really is. Juzo reveals his knives and begins assaulting the clowns. The doves are then advised to commence their assault. Yuri only thinks about attaining a badge for this mission. Their biggest priority is catching the Big Madame and to save human life. Kanou wants to steal Toru from Master Shu. Aogiri's Naki squad then intervenes on the affair. Toru uses the confusion to knock down the Nutcracker. Juzo and Ayato begin fighting each other. Toru panics as Kanou walks in with exuberance. The map of important details is as follows, with Kanou wanting to test Toru's flavor. The other investigators note that Heisei moves like Kishio. The Q squad is then attacked by the Nutcracker's partner, as Matsuri commands them to keep moving forward. Misa begins attacking the investigators outside. Akira then joins the fight, making a similar face to her late father. Hinami gives orders based on her perceptions. Kanou tastes Toru's blood and is very pleased. The torso attacks Kanou. Toru attempts to escape, but Kanou impales him with her Kagune. Dr. Kanou watches the events on the monitors as he wonders if it's time for the owl to arrive. Edo then asks Sato if he's ready to go. You all remember Sato the investigator, don't you? Toru escapes through the halls, wondering if his wound will heal. Romo feigns being in trouble as she impales Akaki Shibashi. Hirako's squad then joins in as No Face casually greets them. Akira then lands a fatal blow on Naki with the Figuchi Quinke. Gagi and Guge protect their leader from enemy fire as Naki cries over their bodies. Ayato receives a call from Hinami that Naki is outnumbered as Juzo decides to hide for him for the moment. It appears that the Quink squad is replacing the old guard at the CCG, just like when Kishio arrived and caused envy and jealousy in his comrades. Ato's squad defeats the Nutcracker's partner as the man himself is decapitated by Sato.
Kinda reminds me of a freshly picked pineapple.
Sato dispatches with Ato's squad with ease. Hirako fights with No Face. Shibashu's squad is called in for backup as No Face mocks Hirako by wearing a Kisho mask. Kanou takes the upper hand against Toru until Heisei intervenes. Yuri and Shirazu attack Kaine as the ghouls recognize who Heisei really is. Kaine battles the Quink squad, thinking of Master Shu the entire time. Matsumai saves Kaine and manages to escape. The Nutcracker obliterates the Oshoshiba squad, consuming a girl's face in the process. The Heisei and Quinks are tasked with taking the Nutcracker out. Heisei asks Yuri to escort Toru out, which angers him since he's aiming for an achievement. The Ado squad is ordered to back up the Quinks, but Sato is currently munching on his head. Yuri suspects that the ghouls are hiding in an underground facility. Toru stops in her tracks and begins to bleed from her wounds. Naki is caught and is shot by multiple investigators. Toji then recognizes Sato from his days with the CCG. Sato rips off her head in fury. Yuri and Toru discover the location where all the ghouls are hiding. Sato is told to relocate, but then he comes across Heisei's group. He then ambushes Heisei and knocks him down. Heisei activates his Kagune to impale Sato in the air. Heisei instructs Shirazu to depart. Shirazu then contacts Matsuri, and he instructs them to head toward the administrative building as Heisei fights Sato alone. Yuri contemplates how he'll handle all the ghouls, as Juzo makes his presence known. Juzo and Yuri then jump down to the ghouls' surprise. Ayato saves Naki from certain doom. Juzo and Yuri unleash hell on the ghouls. Hiraku continues fighting No Face, as Roma kills Okumo with ease. Gambo grabs Takomi's leg, but the ghoul investigator punches back. Takomi breaks Gambo's neck as Hirako stabs No Face. Shirazu jumps towards the Nutcracker, but is impaled by her Kagune coming through the ceiling. With two Kagune, the Nutcracker is especially dangerous. Shirazu and the CCG officers struggle against the Nutcracker, as the Quinks nearly loses his balls in the process. Yuri loves his new levels of power. He chases Big Madame, but is brutalized by her Kagune. Yuri is pierced by multiple knives as he collapses to the ground. Toru walks in as Big Madame begins to devour Yuri. As Heisei gets battered to the edge of death by Sato, Kaneki lurks in his psyche, imploring him to call him by his name. Sato seems to be setting up for the climactic event. Through a series of events, the Nutcracker is impaled by her own Kagune. The Nutcracker's light flashes before her eyes as she claims she wants to be beautiful. Sato wonders why Heisei, no, Ken Kaneki, is hesitating. Ayato takes on multiple ghoul investigators. Hinami orders Ayato and Miza to retreat as the CCG is regrouping. Terrible screams are heard as Saiko is shocked by what she's seeing on the monitors. Toru is brutalized by Big Madame's scrappers. Yuri escapes from Big Madame's mouth, taking on a crazed state of mind. Big Madame continues her onslaught, sending the crazed Quinks onto the ground. Yuri pities himself, wishing that everyone would just die. Toru releases his Kagune, comforting Yuri. Yuri smells menstrual blood from Toru, realizing that she's actually a girl. Juzo intervenes, acknowledging Big Madame as quote-unquote mom. Sato insults Heisei's weaknesses, preparing for the final blow. That is, until Hinami comes in to save him. Hinami states that Heisei is still useful to the Aogiri tree. Hinami and Sato begin fighting, with Hinami reminiscing about the meaning behind Kaneki's name, which means thin ice. Hinami cuts off one of Sato's hands, which gets him excited. Juzo corners Big Madame, who begs for him to spare her life. As she's about to proclaim that she never loved him, the Juzo squad takes her out. Juzo then says, "Goodbye, Dad." Hinami is badly hurt from Sato. Heisei then states that he's not Kaneki. Despite this, Hinami is resolute in stating that Heisei Sasaki is Ken Kaneki. While Heisei fights Sato, he has an internal discussion with Kaneki. "Don't let me disappear," says the child version of Kaneki. Heisei releases all his rage on Sato. While the auction sweep mission was taking place, the CCG, under Maruda, was secretly transporting Quinkei steel. After Squad S3 finished their mission, they rushed over to the auction sweep operation to provide assistance. Among them was the CCG's Reaper, Kisho. Though there were numerous casualties, the auction sweep was mostly a success. The Aogiri tree failed to halt the Quinkei steel transport and provide security at the auction. In addition, some of their members fell to a ghoul who cannibalized them. Akira then sees Sato for the first time as a ghoul. With Hinami in his possession, he asks Kisho to take charge of her for unknown reasons. Heisei, now 1 year older, is promoted to the rank of senior investigator. Everyone else is promoted with Toru jumping 2 ranks. Juzo and Matsuri are promoted to special investigators. Despite Yuri's promotion, he's still jealous of Takome. Aiwa then congratulates his son and Yuri. Meanwhile, Hinami is being held for questioning at Cochlea. Heisei goes to the bathroom, interrupted by a vision of Kaneki, who tells him not to make him disappear. While watering the garden, Kaine remembers her first meeting with Shu. In the now, Shu is in agony and is encased in his own Kagune. While Miromo, Shu's father, grieves over his son's condition, Kaine checks in on him. Tatsura and Ayato discuss how they should retrieve Hinami. Sato provokes Ayato by stating Hinami was there to save Heisei. Meanwhile, Heisei meets with Hinami and reminds her that he is not Ken Kaneki. Afterwards, he meets with Assistant Special Investigator Kijima, who will be working with him on the Rose investigation. Shirazu has a nightmare about the Nutcracker. Special investigators heading up the Roswald family, i.e. Rose investigation. The Rose group is highly trained and leaves little traces of evidence behind, making them hard to track. Senior investigator Ihei joins the investigation, and the Quinks are surprised by her young age. Shirazu goes to pick up his new Quinkei, but then thinks about the Nutcracker's last words and vomits. Hori tells Kanai to look for someone else to serve, but Kanai viciously fires back at her. Hori asks if Kanai would throw away the family just for Shu. Kanai returns to Shu's room, as he's in the midst of a deranged state of mind. They eventually subdue the gourmet as Kanai takes her frustration out on a tree. Kijima's group closes in on Matsumai, and it looks like she's about to escape, until Ihei blocks her path. Heisei then goes to visit Uda. Hirako is transferred, and Ito has taken over the squad. Heisei thinks of how to proceed with the roast investigation when S1 is working alongside them, and they're filled with elite people. In the now, Heisei returns his mask that was sent out by Uda. Heisei then wants to order a custom mask. While Kijima missed out on Matsumai, he did catch Yuma, one of the Rose members. In the interrogation room, Kijima threatens to send parts of Yuma back as a threat. Later on, Kanai asks Matsumai who she would hypothetically save, the Tsukiyama family or Master Shu. Shirazu, Saiko, and Takomi go to a bakery where Takomi recognizes a worker there, Yokira. As Yuri works out, he recalls a conversation that when ghouls get hurt, they develop more RC tubes. And if you have more RC tubes, the stronger you can be. So if you suffer more pain, the stronger you are. After teaching a class at the academy, Heisei talks to Gomasa. The former interrogator at Cochlea emanates a dark presence and asks about Toru. Hori presents an idea to Kanai to tell Master Shu that Kaneki is still alive, as Heisei. She hands Kanai several envelopes, which she presents to Master Shu. Shu is desperate to see Kaneki, so Kanai decides to accompany him. They approach the CCG building. Shu is overcome with emotions when he finally sees Heisei in the CCG uniform. Heisei, however, doesn't recognize him, which shakes Shu to his core. The Quinks then go have masks made by Uda so they can disguise themselves as ghouls for the Rose investigation. Kori denies Heisei's plan for the Rose investigation. This is because she views Heisei as a ghoul and a danger to the CCG. On the CCG website, Kijima posts a video of him torturing the ghoul they captured to entice the Rose members. Uda then tells Yoma he's friends with Heisei. Kori excoriates Kijima for his methods, yet he seems unfazed by this. Shu blames himself for Yuma's capture, but he has a plan to rescue him. Shu tells Kanai that his plan involves reviving Kaneki's memories. Shu then meets Heisei to discuss Tatsuki's books. Heisei excuses himself away though, as Kaine tells Shu they'll have their opportunities in the future. Shu then wonders if the people of Anteiku know if Kaneki is still alive. Hori is then chased by the CCG for aiding ghouls so that she can acquire premium photographs. Yuri then recognizes Kanai from the auction and a battle ensues. The Aogiri, who were hired by Kanai, then confront Heisei and the others. The Torso then appears from the shadows to fight Toru. Grave Robber then steps in to defend Torso with her Quinke. Shirazu looks to use his Quinke, but he is paralyzed by the haunting memory of the Nutcracker. Yuri takes on Kanai by himself, easily taking the upper hand. While Saiko hides from the others, Shikorai bears down on her. Kanai manages to escape. Toru's fight with the Grave Robber intensifies, with Yuri coming to her aid. The others converge on Heisei as he handily scares away the other ghouls. Shikorai eats Saiko until a mysterious figure blasts him away. Kanai walks away in failure as Edo giggles from a rooftop. Shu then goes to the coffee shop to pay Toka a visit. At the Coffee shop, Shu talks to Toka and Nishiki about bringing the old Kaneki back. Toka, however, thinks it's better if he doesn't come back to the ghoul world. Shu promises he'll bring Kaneki back and leaves. Shirazu thinks of his sister and her RC cell oversecretion disease and how he needs money to pay for the treatments. Investigator Fura gives Shirazu advice on his Quinke use. Shirazu then shaves his head, promising everyone he'll be a better squad leader. A meeting is held discussing the connection between Rose and the Aogiri tree. Kori puts Heisei's mask plan to a vote, and it's approved 6 votes to 4. Edo approaches Kaine, displaying her superiority. "What is your vision of God?" says Edo. She then proclaims that Kaine is more interested in making Heisei suffer than seeing Shu's recovery. Edo will now be her new god. Operation Mask begins with the members gathering useful information around the wards. Heisei returns to the CCG, finding Amon's files about the one-eyed ghoul. Heisei enters his own mind, seeing Kaneki blaming himself for Amon's death. Naki then goes to visit Dr. Kanou. Kanou's success rate for test subjects has been dismal, so he hopes to improve this through the Quink's procedure. Kanou will bring Gagi and Gugi back to life, yet his intentions seem unclear. Heisei wants to find out more about Amon and Kaneki. Shu meets up with Heisei again. "Are you a ghoul?" questions Heisei. "Did you know Kaneki?" Shu states that Heisei may lose his current lifestyle if he finds out who he truly was. A million thoughts race through Shu's mind as he remembers the good times with Kaneki. Shu doesn't divulge any information, as he's unsure of himself as he leaves. Aliza fails to save Yuma and is murdered by Kijima. The chairman of the CCG orders the eradication of the Tsukiyama family. The Quinks prepare for their upcoming mission. Heisei then agrees to teach Shirazu about his Quinque. At the CCG, Heisei asks Akira about Amon. Akira gives vague answers, which throws Heisei into a fit of rage. Akira embraces Heisei and says, "You are you. Names don't matter." Mirumo gives Shu some coffee that knocks him out. The father instructs Matsumai to take him away before the CCG enters the estate. Meanwhile, Edo tortures Kaine, telling her she'll be loved. Kori takes Mirumo into custody. The investigators wonder where all the other ghouls are and notice that all the cars are missing. Shu wakes up to Matsumai's voice. Master Mirumo gave himself up so they can escape. They're heading to the 8th Ward to escape via a helicopter. Shu arrives at the Luna Eclipse building, where his helicopter is being prepared. But it's not long before the CCG arrives and begins their extermination. Matsuri then arranges an assault chopper for the cleanup. Off in the distance, Edo says to Noro, "Commence." The battle quickly becomes a bloodbath. Kori instructs Heisei to head up to the roof, so Heisei breaks a window and makes his ascent. Matsumai tells Shu she's heading to the lower levels. She confronts Ihei's group as Shu walks up to the rooftop to see his escape helicopter destroyed by Heisei's group. "Are you freaking kidding me?" says Shu. As Heisei stares at Shu, he tells Kori there's no sign of him yet. Heisei advises Shu to surrender, and he'll henceforth take charge of him like he did with Hinami. Shu refuses Heisei's offer by kicking him in the stomach. Kaine brutalizes the Shimaguchi squad. She then heads to Master Shu's location. Matsumai recalls her training as she fights with Ihei. She then impales Ihei through the chest. Ito and the Quinks then confront Noro. Noro destroys several investigators with ease. Psycho activates her Kagune and cuts Noro in half. The ghoul, however, puts himself back together again, continuing his onslaught. Myro jumps ahead, telling Matsumai to take care of Shu. Ihei obliterates him with a lightning shock, but he presses forward to decapitate her. Myro then distracts Kojima, so Matsumai can use a chainsaw Quinque to cut into his face. Despite this, Kojima continues to battle with Matsumai until she finally puts him to rest. Furuta, Kojima's partner, uses a distraction to gouge Matsumai's eyes. Meanwhile, Shu seems to have no qualms about killing Heisei so he can escape. Heisei takes the upper hand though, until his right arm is severed off. Heisei screams while Kaine throws his arm off the roof. She then slams him against a wall with her Kagune. The Quinks struggle with Noro. Toru and Shirazu combine their attacks to explode Noro's torso, as Shinji stabs him in the head. Noro activates his Kakuya, which wreaks havoc on the investigators in the vicinity. Kaine holds Heisei on the edge of the skyscraper. Heisei thinks of Kisho before he decapitates Kaine with his legs. However, just like Noro, she reattaches her head. Kaine then recalls how her family was displaced by the CCG, and how they eventually all died for her sake. She thusly pretended to be a boy at the Tsukiyama estate, which didn't trick anyone except for Master Shu. She remembers her torture with Edo as Heisei slams her against a wall. Shu feebly holds Heisei back as Edo lunges in to take on the CCG investigator. Moments prior to this, Edo bursts through Matsuri's helicopter as he managed to throw a hook onto the building to save himself. Kaine, under Edo's orders, begins assaulting Heisei, as Heisei enters into the deep regions of his unconscious. "Hey, weren't you going to save me? I used to get spanked all the time by somebody I loved. I want to die heroically. Good night, Heisei. I'm done dreaming." Heisei tears off Kaine's arm and shoves a steel bar into her eye. Heisei then gashes her severely. Kaneki is officially back, stabbing Shu with his Kagune. Shirazu fiercely continues his battle with Noro. "Yuri! That enough cover for ya?" Yuri wishes for Shirazu not to die as he lunges in to obliterate Noro's head. Shirazu is in bad shape after the confrontation. Yuri worries that Shirazu may have taken too much damage. Shirazu talks about his sister as he finally succumbs to his wounds. Matsuri attempts to collect the troops to battle the one-eyed owl, but Yuri is troubled by his indifference to all the deaths. Kaneki dodges Edo's attacks. He says that Kuzin, his father, wanted him to save her, which she laughs off. Kaneki narrowly misses Edo's real body. "Why should I save trash like you?" Edo's Kakuya begins babbling nonsense as it chases Kaneki on the building. Kaneki lures the ghoul in and impales her with his Kagune. Edo comes flying out and licks her own blood off of Kaneki's face. Kaneki slices her in half, as she claims that she likes him. Kori arrives on the rooftop to see Kaneki feasting on Edo's Kakuya. Despite the fatal injuries he caused to Edo, Kaneki tells Kori that the one-eyed owl escaped. Kaneki then tosses his shoe off the building with his Kagune. Kaine jumps off the roof and grabs on the shoe. She expresses her feelings towards him. He then grabs her face and calls her by her real name. Kaine then tosses shoe to safety as she plunges to her own death. Yuri apprises Kaneki about what happened to Shirazu. Kaneki tells Yuri if he's going to curse anything, he should curse his own weakness. Kaneki then visits the other Quinks as they mourn Shirazu's death. Toka and Yoma save Shu from the CCG investigators. He then enters a van with Hori and his father inside. While they escape, the Aogiri tree attacks several transport vehicles with dead investigators inside, one of which being the vehicle with Shirazu's body. Yuri tells Toru that he'll bring Shirazu's body back. Kanou then dissects Shirazu's body and learns valuable information about the Quink's procedure. Edo's body is fully regenerated now, as Assistant Special Investigator Heisei leads an eradication mission against some members of the Aogiri tree. We then find out that Heisei resigned as the mentor of the Qs, and Yuri has assumed the leadership role in place of Shirazu. 6 months after the Rose operation, the CCG has dedicated all its efforts on taking down the Aogiri tree. The new Q squad watch Yuri take down several ghouls. Matsuri talks to Yuri, telling him that S3, led by Kishio, has accomplished a great deal, but if they can catch up, it might be possible for him to lead S3. Yuri understands that Matsuri wants to become bureau chief, and if he helps him to those ends, Yuri will be the head of S3. Therefore, he becomes Matsuri's faithful dog, as it were. Yuri visits Hinami and Koklia, handing over a list of Aogiri members they've killed or captured in the last month. The reason she's helping Yuri is so that she can talk to Heisei, who hasn't paid her a visit in a while. Heisei and Furuta then meet Takatsuki's editor, Shiono, outside the CCG building. Heisei then interrogates Shiono, explaining that they suspect Takatsuki of being a ghoul. As Furuta searches Shiono's apartment, Heisei states that he suspects Takatsuki of being the one-eyed owl. A special investigators meeting is now held. Heisei is filling in for Kishio, which angers Matsuri. Heisei explains there's been suspicious activity on a World War II fortified island known as Rushima, which could be the Aogiri stronghold. After the one-eyed owl, Tatora is their top priority. Heisei says that the Hachikawa squad has been dispatched to Rushima. We then find out that Toru is part of the squad. Furuta updates Heisei about the new Q squad. There's Toma, Jingli, and Ora. Toru is at Rushima doing recon work. Yuri then meets with Matsuri at his lavish estate. The Washu family member was hoping to return to Japan when Yoshitoki died. Matsuri questions the boy about his love life, but Yuri is primarily focused on his job, which Matsuri likes. Edo then addresses the Aogiri tree, admitting she writes books under the name Takatsuki. She then reveals she is not the One-Eyed King. Meanwhile, Kishio tells Furuta that V wants to see them. Edo reminisces about her past, and how she pursued her ambitions as a writer and growing the Aogiri tree to fight the doves. One day, Shiono entered her apartment and found human body parts in Tupperware. In the present, Heisei takes Edo into custody on suspicion of being a ghoul. On Rushima, Sato and Shikori attack the Hachikawa group. Shikori impales Hachikawa with his Kagune. Toru escapes, so Sato and Shikori decide to eat Hachikawa's body parts. Toru takes care of Hoji in a cave, but then the torso appears to wreak havoc on them. At a V meeting, Kaiko orders Kishio to take care of Rize as Furuta observes Heisei and Edo. Heisei then attends Edo's last press conference as Takatsuki. In it, she admits to being a ghoul. Heisei reads her last book, which references a one-eyed king. The one-eyed king in the book leads the ghouls against a world that opposes them, making him an anti-hero of sorts. What's interesting about the book, though, is that the Washu family is depicted as ghoul collaborators. Yoshitoki orders more ghouls to Rushima. A flashback is shown with the original Quinks agreeing to pay for Shirazu's sister's treatment. In a cave, the torso confesses his love to Toru as he holds her severed limbs. Edo informs Heisei about the V, and how the RC scanners were set up to avoid detecting certain ghouls within the V, including Rize. We see a flashback where Kamashiro takes Rize in. He decided to take the rap for her murders, and thusly went to Koklia for her, but Edo broke him out. He thusly established a truce with Yoshimura to protect Edo if Yoshimura would protect Rize, hence the reason that Yomo saved Rize at the lab. Kishio wants to thusly eradicate Kamashiro, i.e. Sachi. Kishio's men battle with Sachi. The Reaper eventually finds his weak spot and impales his neck. Banjo reads Edo's book as Ayato drops in. Heisei tells Yuri he won't be part of the Rushima investigation, as he'll be guarding their most important prisoner. Heisei asks Yuri to save Toru, to which he agrees. Edo then calls Furuta Kanou's clown. Edo notes that Furuta was behind the steel bars falling on Rize, the leaked info about the dead CCG officers going to the Aogiri tree, and collecting the test subjects for Kanou. Furuta, like Noro, is a clown and wants to know who is the one-eyed king. Edo says, "The king dwells in your guts." Edo calls Furuta Washio, which angers him to no end. Furuta reminisces about his time with Rize as a child. Heisei heard the conversation through a recorder. Edo then requests that he kill the one-eyed king, but he doesn't know what she means by this. The CCG assembles for the Rushima mission. Banjo assembles the gas mask to breach Cochlea with Ayato. The CCG engages with the enemy on the shoreline. Heisei then recalls his imprisonment after the Extermination mission. During this time, Kisho brought him books and gave him a new name. Ayato has security clearance for Cochlea. He enters, but the alarms go off to his surprise. Heisei then prepares himself for the impending battle. Furuta hands Edo pate made out of shiono. Furuta goes to the camera room and finds out that Heisei is releasing numerous prisoners from their isolation cells. Ayato and the gas mask enter the facility. Meanwhile, Heisei searches for Hinami's cell. Kishio attacks Ayato, but 33 saves him from danger. We see a flashback with Hide, in which he allowed Kaneki to eat him to fight Kishio. Kaneki enters Hinami's cell to save her. Hinami slaps Kaneki in the face, blaming him for being an investigator. This is his last job though, to get her out and die at the hands of Kishio, since no one can defeat him. Ayato struggles with Kishio. CRC gas is released as the CCG shoots down the ghouls. Ayato and the ghouls escape. He then remembers when Hinami joined the Aogiri tree to become stronger so she could protect those that she cared about. As the ghouls take their masks off, it is revealed that Toka and Yoma were helping out Ayato. Kaneki escapes with Hinami in a secret path, as Furuta confronts them from the rear. Furuta attacks Kaneki with a chainsaw Quinke. Kaneki smashes Furuta against a wall and knocks out a tooth. Hinami knocks Furuta out with her Kagune as the two escape. Ayato's group then fights a group of hooded investigators. Kishio intervenes. Yomo takes him on as he reminisces about his eldest sister, who is Toka and Ayato's mother, making him their uncle. In the now, Yomo pushes Toka out of the way and gets stabbed by Kishio. In the past, Toka's father, Arata, blames himself for his wife's death, to which Yomo viciously agrees. Arata then decided to get stronger to protect his children, but it backfired on him. Yomo has never admitted to being Toka and Ayato's uncle. In the now, Kishio subdues Ayato. Yomo viciously attacks Kishio with a lightning bolt, but he nullifies it and attacks back. Kaneki then steps in to protect Yomo. Kaneki and Kishio engage with each other. Kaneki then instructs Ayato to escape through the lowest drainage port with the others. "I'll see you later," says Toka. "Oh, Toka, that's kind of harsh." Ayato's group collects Hinami as they continue their escape. "I will be the pawn to buy them time." The two lunge at each other as Kaneki thinks of Kishio's teachings. Kishio impales him as they fall to a lower level. Yoshitoki hears about the attack on Cochlea. Torso obsesses over Toru, but when he makes a face, he bashes his head in. Toru remembers her father abusing her as a child. He wakes up as Torso apologizes for what he did. Kaneki thinks he's discovered a weak point in Kishio's defense, but the Reaper slices off his legs. Kaneki's hopes of seeing Toka again is crumbling before his eyes. No one understands Kishio, yet Kaneki views him as a father figure. Kaneki attempts to heal his legs, but he's stabbed by Kishio. The Reaper will kill the others in 5 minutes, as he says he's wasted his time on Kaneki. Kaneki destroys Kishio's Quinke as he enters his Kakuya. Kishio pulls out a new Quinke, titled Owl. Edo is impressed that Kaneki is still alive. Ayato's group meets up with Banjo. They begin escaping as Furuta reactivates the compactors, crushing the ghouls. Edo smashes through the compactors in Kakuya as Ayato's group gets moving. The battle intensifies between Kishio and Kaneki. Kishio gashes into him, cutting off his limbs in the process. Every time he regenerates, Kishio cuts off Kaneki's limbs again. "I did all I could," says Kaneki. Hide appears in his mind, urging him to keep fighting to save his friends. "Hide, I miss you." Hide implores Kaneki to live no matter what. Kaneki renews his battle with Kishio. Edo rampages through the V as Furuta runs off in fear. It looks to be over, but then Furuta attacks Edo with his Kagune and reveals he's a one-eyed ghoul. On Rushima, Kuru speaks of meeting father once again. Misa, a new member of the Aogiri tree, meets Naki. She later sees him crying when he remembers all of his lost comrades. Hanbei stabs one of the white suits and starts fighting Misa. Misa was part of an organized dwarf ghoul society that lived underground. In the now, Hanba uses his Quinkei to gash into Misa. Kuru then arrives, asking if he's one of Juzo's men. Yuri's team searches for Toru in a cave. He eventually finds a torso without limbs or a head. In the not-so-distant past, Torso takes care of Toru as he tells him about his past. He once lived with his father in a tent in the mountains. His father never told him to go to town, but due to extreme hunger, he did so anyway. There, he met Minomi. Since he couldn't attend school, she taught him how to read and write. Upon hearing he went to the town, the father gashed into his cheeks. Afterwards, when the father was gone, the boy brought Minami to his tent. He fell asleep, and after waking up, he found Minami naked and dismembered by his father. Toru begins to sympathize with Torso, but then he grabs him in a terrifying fashion. Torso smashes him down and tells him to be quiet. Toru remembers how she slaughtered her entire family, and subsequently forgot what happened. He remembers skinning a cat alive at the academy. At the auction, he ate a CCG investigator. Toru comes to his senses, with all his limbs intact. He then sees Torso's torso, and remembers killing him. Yuri then reports the dismembered corpse. Yet he wonders who did this, and where Toru is. Hanba and Kuru continue their fight in the forest, yet the ghoul is proving too much for Hanba. Juzo leaps in and slashes at Kuru. She dodges the first strike, but then is hit by multiple daggers. She pulls out the daggers and shows Juzo that her sister, Shiro, still lives as a part of her. Kuro wants Kanou to fix her and her sister. The Juzo squad gets in position to fight Kuro. Juzo attacks with 13's Jason, but Kuro breaks the Quinkei and impales his chest. At Cochlea, Kaneki creates a Kagune net to trap Kishio. Though Kishio does well to avoid multiple attacks, Kaneki manages to break the owl Quinkei. Furuta notes that Edo's father, the owl, is done, as he stands over her in a victorious fashion. Furuta's Kagune is from Rize, just like Kaneki. Edo wonders what Furuta wants, and he says, "Super peace." Though he's got no Quinkei, Kishio charges into Kaneki. The Reaper impales Kaneki's abdomen, but it's useless with Kaneki's regeneration abilities. Kishio has never lost in 18 years, and since Kaneki won't kill him, Kishio slashes his own neck. "What are you doing?" says Kaneki. Kishio says that him, Ihei, and Furuta are all failures. He labels himself as a half-ghoul, and half-ghouls can eat normal food, don't necessarily produce a Kagune, and have short life expectancies. The Washu clan, i.e. the V, are a clan of ghouls, and they may have wanted to become human themselves. Maruta determines that the RC gates were rigged to allow the Washus and members from the Kishio squad from the garden to pass through without being detected. Maruta shoots Yoshitoki. "I'm disappointed in you, Maru!" The Washus are ghouls, and Yoshimura partnered with them in the past as Kuzan. Kishio wants Kaneki to be his killer. Kishio then admits that he hated killing others as he finally rests in peace. Ayato's group is then confronted by the CCG officers. Hinami blocks a blast with her Kagune, leaving her injured. Ayato attacks but is stopped by Aura's Quinkei. Ayato looks to be in trouble, but is saved by Toka's Kagune. Haisaki watches the monitors as Donato rips off the warden's head. Uda tosses a mask to Donato, saying that they should get the king. Hirako approaches Kishio's corpse. Children from the garden say their farewells to Kishio. Squad 0, by Kishio's orders, will get Kaneki out of Cochlea. Matsuri lies to Yuri, stating Maruta killed himself after finding Yoshitoki dead. He then cries over his father's death. Multiple investigators approach Tatara, including Akira. Hirako hands Kaneki a necktie pin that was a present from Kishio. Kaneki recites a poem to his teacher/father as he says his farewell. Edo says he no longer has to kill the one-eyed king as she passes away. Toka's stamina wears out as Yomo leaps into action, while Yoma has his stomach blasted open by Mogen. Hirako arrives with Squad 0 to hand over his resignation. Edo and Kishio, the One-Eyed King, kept the throne warm for its new successor. Ken Kaneki is the new One-Eyed King, and the throne is his to do what he wants. By the way, Ri means king. Kuro killed Juzo, yet she wonders why the squad is so calm as they attack her. She claims they never liked him, but they laugh this off. Juzo descends like a predatory bird to cut Kuru in half. He proceeds to slice her arms to pieces as she runs away in fear. Juzo's squad will provide assistance to Hoji's squad in battling Tatara. Meanwhile, Sato chokes Akira. Tatara says it all ends tonight as he enters his Kaguya. Hoji taunts him by saying that he resembles his brother, whom he killed. Tatara's Kagune produces massive flames. Hoji charges in and dodges Tatara's attacks. He calls for Chi-Shi, a Quinque made from Tatara's brother, as he prepares for the final blow, until Sato provides a distraction. Tatara is pissed, shooting flames at Sato. However, Sato lights Tatara on fire and brutalizes him. Grave Robber attacks Sato, calling him a traitor. Sato knocks her down and finishes off Tatara by impaling him multiple times. Sato then seeks praise for his accomplishment, but Hoji wants him dead. Sato cuts off his head and chokes Akira. Amon lunges in, yet Sato cuts off his arm. Sato recalls his time in Kanou's lab. Kanou states that out of the 63 subjects, Sato was the only successful owl. Takizawa, you're a ghoul now. Kanou subjugated Sato to extreme torture to induce RC pathways to increase his regeneration, thereby creating another quote-unquote Kaneki. Akira is shocked to see Mado. Mado claims he's here to save his old friend, Takizawa. Kuro then returns to her daddy, Kanou. Kuro wants to kill Kanou, yet she wishes for him to save her sister first. Kanou verifies that her sister is indeed dead, and sends his new Q onto her. Sato urges Amon to save him, with a devilish smile on his face. Sato pierces Amon with his Kagune, calling him a failed creation. "You're not a ghoul," says Amon. "You're a ghoul investigator." Sato knocks Amon back, but then a dagger lunges into his eye. The dagger came from Toru, who's here to assist Akira. Meanwhile, Kuru takes down the Q, but stares down several more. Elsewhere, Mizo wakes up to see several dead CCG investigators as Naki passes out. Kori attacks Miza, with Naki coming to her defense. Kuru is then overwhelmed by the sheer number of the Qs attacking her. In the past, Kanou states that Kuru and Shiro's father was a supporter of the ghoulification procedure. Well, in reality, he was in massive debt, so he allowed the CCG to conduct experiments under his mansion. He intended to expose their abhorrent research, but then he was mysteriously killed. Kanou wanted the twins to clear their late parents' name. In the now, Nishiki attacks Kanou. Shu then joins Naki and Miza in their fight. Naki doesn't remember Shu. Shu then attacks Kori. Nishiki attacks Kanou with his Kagune, but Shikori cuts it in half as Roma impales Nishiki. Meanwhile, Sato catches Toru in midair. Toru then spits blood in his face and kicks him in the balls. He then pins down Sato and stomps on his testicles. Toru looks for the final blow, but Akira jumps in the way. "Investigator Mado, protecting a ghoul is a serious offense." Akira expresses her regrets about what happened in the past. Toru is visibly angered, yet Amon smacks him down. They engage, with Amon biting into Toru's neck. Yuri then captures Amon, whom he dubs Floppy. Yuri doesn't know how to handle the situation with Akira and Toru. The squad decides to attack Amon head-on. While fighting, Amon instructs Sato to take Akira to his friend. Yuri wants to prevent this from happening, yet Amon puts up resistance. At the lab, Roma taunts Nishiki until Kuru impales her. Two unknown people with black dauber masks then enter the area with Shu and Naki, and they provide assistance against the CCG. Kori's Quinque is then grabbed by a hooded figure. Roma charges into Nishiki. Kuru stops her in her tracks. Shikori clenches onto Kuru's neck, but is kicked by Nishiki. Shikori flees as Roma pleads to be spared. Amon struggles on against Yuri's group. Saiko wants ownership of Amon since he saved her life during the Rose investigation. Yuri declines this request. He then obliterates the former CCG investigator. Amon's body transforms into its Kakiya form. Amon dismantles the Q squad. A crazed Yuri attempts to stop Amon's rampage, yet he's forcibly knocked down. Amon recalls the situation when he first met Kaneki and they battled, as Saiko crushes him with her Kagune. And with this, the Rushima mission is officially concluded. Matsuri wants Maruta dead, since he knows the Washu family secret. The CCG chairman is dead now, with Furuta declaring himself the Washu king in front of Donato, Uda, and Kaiko. A month after the Rushima mission, Kaneki is living with Hirako and the members of the Squad Zero. Toka then pours Kaneki a cup of coffee. She then slaps him down and claims she feels much better now. Kaneki then meets up with Koma and Arimi as the crew from Manteku is finally all back together again, except for Yoshimura. They then meet up with Shu, Ayato, the White Suits, Miza, and Kuru. Kaneki recalls his conversation with Edo, in which he said that the world must be broken for something new to be born. Kaneki hereby forms an anti-human organization known as the GOAT. A handwritten letter was found in the chairman's desk, recommending that Furuta become the next bureau chief. Kori states that Heisei and Hirako betrayed the CCG, yet he can't help but feel sad by the people he's lost. Yuri confirms his allegiance to Matsuri by stating he'd kill Heisei if ordered to. Matsuri instructs Yuri to keep an eye on Furuta. Matsuri then strips naked when Yuri leaves and claims he's falling in love with him. Saiko knows that Toru isn't really a guy, but she wonders why she has the smell of human blood on her. Meanwhile, Banjo uses his Kagune to heal Akira for Kaneki. Kaneki then meets up with Furuta. Furuta confirms that he made the Washu murder look like it was the work of Kaneki. Furuta admits to dropping the beam on Rize. The Washu family has several branches, with Kishu and Furuta receiving the addition of human blood. Collectively, they make up the V. Rize was a host that was meant to keep the bloodline pure. Due to love, Furuta set Rize free. Rize, however, didn't seem to care for Furuta, so the clown took care of her. Furuta then says, Rize is going to bear lots of babies, like the 101 Dalmatians. Hirako believed in Kishio, just as Yomo believes in Kaneki right now. CCG branch offices are under attack, but it's not from Kaneki's group. We see Donato watching the carnage from a distance. Akira's condition begins to worsen as Nico implores them to take her to a doctor. Sato says they can't take her to a doctor since she violated the countermeasure law. Nico offers an alternative. Kaneki wants to help out the White Suits. Naki resists by putting up a fight, but Kaneki reveals Yomori's Kagune. Naki declares Kaneki the leader of the White Suits. Kaneki then meets up with Ogura from the Taiwa Act, which is a ghoul support group. One of the members who proposed coexistence with the ghouls was a medical student who fell in love with the ghoul. Nishiki has an emotional response to this, but he doesn't elaborate any further. Because Akira received treatment from a Kagune, they'll need to recover RC cell suppressant to provide Akira with adequate treatment. At the CCG, Furuta points out a pattern with the clown attacks. Yoshitoki parried this threat by defending each ward and having Kishio protect the main office. Furuta wants Juzo to be the new Kishio Arima. Kori gives her support for the plan and accepts full responsibility. Takomi then goes to the bakery to ask Yokiro to marry him, to which she agrees. Kori and Furuta encounter Matsuri. The conversation becomes awkward regarding the authorization of the operation, but Kori reassures Furuta that his analysis is sound. Kaneki, Ayato, Nishiki, and Kuru will infiltrate the CCG lab to recover the RC suppressant. Shu will head up the suit group. Sato demands to go to the lab as well, so Kaneki interchanges him with Nishiki. Yomo and Toka are in charge of communications. Yokira lost contact with Toka after the raid in the 20th ward, and she wants to tell her about her marriage. At a Valentine's Day parade, clowns begin to terrorize the public. Various CCG officers across all the wards confront the clowns. Matsuri denigrates Kori for the matter, but it's not long before the clowns arrive at the main office. Matsuri is then shocked that Furuta was right. Furuta shocks everyone by assuming control in a voice that is eerily reminiscent of Yoshitoki's. Meanwhile, in the 22nd ward, Kaneki's squad is ready to implement their plans. Members of the GOAT take down several clowns with ease. Furuta wonders about Heisei's actions, as 6 wards are currently under attack by the clowns. Meanwhile, Juzo prevents the clowns from crossing the bridge to the CCG main office. Yuri splits up the Quink squad to cover more ground. Toma's uncle is stabbed by a Kagune. Yuri and Toma head to the building where it came from and spot Donato inside. Donato takes Toma's arm and nearly pierces Yuri in the head. Donato disappears from sight and traps Yuri in the ceiling with his Kagune. Donato then rips off Toma's other arm. Kaneki's group is done with the clowns, but then they are attacked by the V. Kaneki wants to help, but he has to fulfill his other plans, so he leaves Shu in charge and leaves. Yuri remembers talking to Dr. Shiba, who stated that his RC level was equivalent to a ghoul. Shiba states that if he went beyond frame 3, that there wouldn't be any coming back. Yuri then questioned Shiba about Toru's RC level. Meanwhile, in the first ward, Toru's team takes down some clowns. Furuta pretends to be surprised when told about the V's involvement in the 22nd ward. Since the GOAT is opposing the V, they'll be treated as hostile ghouls. Kaneki can't seem to shake the members of the V, so he decides to jump on a train, leaving the V agents in his dust. Donato talks about his orphanage that was taken from him by a certain investigator. Yuri breaks free to tackle Donato down. Donato impales Yuri with his Kagune. He then reveals that Yuri's father was the one responsible for taking his orphanage away from him. Mikito, Yuri, and Aiwa took Donato into custody. Amon was found in his basement wearing a surgical mask. In the now, Donato runs Yuri's face across a shattered window. Yuri remembers his father as he stands up and reveals his Kakugan. I am. Kaneki, Ayato, Sato, and Kuru enter the CCG lab disguised as employees. The group can't find the RC suppressants, but they find a clue that leads them to Research Facility 4. Juzo then notices that the clowns are actually humans, with their mouths sewn shut. Uda then interjects, stating he wants to play. Juzo attacks Uda, the mask comes off and it's Shinohara, or an illusion of Shinohara. Hanbei slices Uda vertically across the face. Juzo gives Nakarai the order not to engage with any non-hostile clowns. Yuri and Donato continue their hostile fight. Donato pities the poor child, blaming his father for everything. No matter what Yuri achieves in life, he will never be fulfilled. Yuri, I can say with absolute certainty that your father is the one you truly loathe. Yuri absolutely loses it, impaling Donato straight through the chest. Well, that's what it looks like. It turns out Donato created a clone of himself with just a piece of his finger. Inside the CCG lab, Sato picks up on the smell of the RC suppressants. Kaneki cuts off the lights as they capture the researchers inside the facility. Kaneki and Sato feel extremely nauseated from the smells in the area. Containers with children inside are labeled Rise 77, 78, 79, and so forth. A researcher tries to escape, but Sato takes him down. Another researcher presses a button, releasing Amon from his holding tank. In the past, Kanou and Edo were interested to see how Amon would turn out as a one-eyed ghoul. Amon wakes up sometime later, seeing Sato tortured and forcibly fed. Amon grabs some meat himself, but soon realizes it's from a human source. Kanou reminds Amon that if he doesn't eat, he'll die. A feeding tube is implemented to force Amon to eat. Amon then meets Gamon. In the now, Amon smashes through the holding tank. He then releases his Kagugan with a devilish smile on his face. Higemaru brings Saiko to Yuri's location. Saiko then notices Donato standing on an electrical pole. Saiko and Xiao make their way up to the rooftop, only to find Yuri in a crazed state. Xiao claims he's framed out, and there's no saving him at this point. Saiko is visibly shocked and remembers her conversation with Yuri, where Yuri talked about getting stronger than Kishio, so they could serve as Heisei's safeguard. Yuri then said if something ever happened to one of the Qs, that he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate them. Saiko understands her responsibilities, as she prepares herself for a brutal fight. Hey Yuri, I don't want to lose anyone else. Saiko goes in for her attack. She then activates Slacker Power, which traps Yuri inside her Kagune. Yuri breaks free with his strength. Saiko remembers Yuri's conversations about muscle training, so she unleashes two muscular arm Kagunes. Xiao recalls a situation where Saiko formed her Kagune into a fan to cool herself when she was reading. Despite Yuri being an elite investigator, Saiko's natural ability is substantially higher than his. Saiko pounds Yuri into the pavement, showing her comrade no remorse. Yuri cuts Xiao's Kagune as he begins to curse Heisei. Yuri wants his strength to be acknowledged as he enters a delusional state of mind. Saiko embraces the boy in her big titties and announces that she likes him. Xiao injects Yuri with the RC suppressant as he collapses to the ground. Meanwhile, Kaiko discusses Kaneki, Rise, and Kuzin, claiming they will take actions that will result in peace. Nico is then seen with a dead investigator, as Matsuri thinks to himself that he looks familiar. Kori and Mogen note that if the public catches on to the CCG killing humans, that it will kill investigator morale. Juzo and Uda's battle intensifies. After getting pierced by multiple daggers, Uda decides to flee. Toru gives chase as we return to the lab, with Kaneki and Amon staring each other down. But this time, the roles seem reversed. Kaneki is repelled back by Amon's hard Kagune. Ayato finds his suppressants, yet Kaneki can't leave Amon in this abominable condition. Ayato reiterates that everyone is relying on him, and that his sister is waiting for him. Sato doesn't want to see his leader die a heroic death, so he'll do the dirty work and bring Amon back. Ayato hands Kaneki the RC suppressant, as the boy remembers his first meeting with the investigator. Well, Investigator Amon, as fellow half-asses, let's be friends, huh? Toru captures Uda and begins stabbing him, but then he changes his face into Heisei's. A flashback is shown where Heisei first meets the Quink Squad. Toru recalls the moment where Heisei was crying in the presence of Toka. She thinks to herself that she loves him as Uda implores her to stop. Toru jabs a knife into Uda's neck and begins to lose her mind. Ora then comes in and witnesses Toru having intercourse with the mangled body of Uda. Kuru and Sato simultaneously attack Amon. Kuru then wonders if the RC suppressants are effective when administered orally. Sato's right arm is blown off in the midst of the battle, and Kuru gets knocked back by Amon. Sato then enters his Kakuya form. Sato recalls his times with Kanou, where he was eating human meat for the first time. Sato's battle with Amon continues as he remembers his time in prison with Amon. Amon refused to eat his food and implored Sato to never give up. However, it was already too late, because as Sato saw it, he died in that cell. Sato wants Akira to be happy because he's bringing back investigator Amon. Sato pierces through Amon's Kakuya. Kuru then saves Sato from being consumed by his Kakuya with the RC suppressant, as it looks like Amon is back to his normal self. Meanwhile, Matsuri is stabbed in the head by the V, but he manages to fight back. Matsuri strips down in the fight, thinking of only seeing Yuri again. Kaiko intervenes, claiming that the Washu lineage is in the way. Maruta then wonders what the hell he just saw. Yuri wakes up, back to his normal self, wondering what just happened. Ora acts like he didn't see anything, as him and Toru decide they're gonna kill Heisei. Uda and Donato need extra body parts because of their destroyed clones. Meanwhile, the Shu-led goat members finish up the V. Kaneki then decides to pull out. The goat has now etched themselves into the minds of the CCG. With the clown threat taken care of, Furuta is now in prime position to get exactly what he wanted. Meanwhile, Akira's procedure goes smoothly. Ogura's team will stay active below the surface and will continue to provide support for the goat. Akira, you're gonna be alright. It's been a while, Amon. Eye patch. Akira wakes up. Banjo greets her, but she's unsure as to who he is. Kaneki visits Akira and reassures her that he's still the same person. However, she's unsure, since he went against Kishio. According to intel, Akira has been dismissed by the CCG and placed on the Ghoul countermeasure violators list. Hirako states that Hinami may be able to help Akira, but she still bears a grudge against her, since Akira's father killed her mother. Amon gets coffee from Toka. Amon states he's unsure as to what to say to Akira, since he left without saying a word. Though Toka killed Mado, Amon bears no ill will towards her, and it's because the world forced them into those situations, and not because they're inherently bad people. Toka then implores Amon to go see Akira. At the CCG, Yuri heads up S2 Squad, Kori is the Deputy Bureau Chief, Juzo leads S3 Squad, and Mogen heads up S1 Squad. With Matsuri gone and no other Washu to take command, Furuta became the de facto Bureau Chief. Furuta introduces the Ogai, the newly formed Q Squad. Furuta then brings out what looks to be Heisei Sasaki. Do you call yourself the One-Eyed King and the leader of the clowns? Heisei admits to leading them, so their heads are all cut off, in the name of peace. Furuta wishes to eradicate all the ghouls from Tokyo. Let's party! Kori looks on in horror, realizing that the CCG is finished. The CCG announces that Heisei is dead. Sato mocks Kaneki by stating he's staring at a ghost. Kaneki thanks Sato for saving Amon. Sato then tosses Amon's cross necklace at Kaneki, but Kaneki says he can't accept this. Takizawa, you'll die if you're not chained down. Akira wakes up as Amon shows up with her pet cat. Amon tries to apologize, but Akira doesn't need one. She's just confused right now. Amon takes his leave, as Akira doesn't know how to act around him. Amon confronts Kaneki on the roof. After Amon escaped the Aogiri tree, he went into hiding and even taught himself how to use his Kagune. With Furuta cracking down harder than ever before, Kaneki will fight for the ghouls. Amon will do what he believes is right, stating that this world is wrong. Kaneki states that he'd be afraid to lose a friend again if he had previously lost them. Ghoul investigators sniff out and kill a mother and child ghoul. Furuta claims he's created 100 Kanekis. Toka wants Akira to take a walk with her. Toka admits to killing Akira's father. Now Akira can hate Toka without reservation. Akira notices some kids who are ghouls. Without their families and the Aogiri tree, They've got nothing. Hinami then arrives. Akira deduces that her father took the lives of all their parents. Akira states her father never did anything wrong, and that she's proud of him. Toka then wonders if Akira's father never pursued ghouls. She then mentions her own father's egregious actions. She's not proud of what he did, and would condone his actions if she could. Toka then claims that Hinami never resented Mado. Hinami gives Akira a hug. The past investigator then wonders, who was I supposed to hate? Akira tells Kaneki she never moved forward from her father's death. She henceforth clung to her job. Kaneki is no longer Heisei to her. She thusly punches him in the gut and tells him goodbye. I'll miss you, says Kaneki. I'll miss you too, replies Akira. Akira tells Amon she feels no hostility towards the ghouls. She wonders where she'll go from here. Amon tells her to embrace emptiness, as it will tell her how to live. I'll be by your side, says Amon. The two, supposedly, then kiss. Juzo suspects that Heisei isn't really dead, and that it was No-Face impersonating him. Yuri suspects that Furuta is a liar. Furuta takes Kori to Dr. Kanou. Kori is angered that Kanou, someone who previously worked with the Aogiri tree, is now amongst their ranks. Furuta takes out Ihei's head and taunts Kori by saying he can bring her back to life. Takomi wants Toru to find Toka so they can invite her to their wedding. Toka dyes her hair and then says, "Are you a virgin?" Kaneki awkwardly dodges the question. Toka says she let him have intercourse if he really wanted to. She then wonders why Kaneki doesn't take her on missions. Kaneki worries, however, that her lone wolf approach might get her killed one day. When Kaneki was Heisei, he stared at Toka while in the coffee shop. Shu then slams the door open, stating they have a big problem. Furuta stands on top of a hill of ghoul corpses, claiming he'll eradicate all ghouls. Kaneki orders everyone out of their hideouts. They'll stay on the move at all times and split up into squads. Kaneki looks to lock up, but then Toru barges in. She begs for Kaneki to come back, but he can't do that. Yuri goes up to Toru's room, finding multiple pictures of Toka stabbed with a knife. Toru claims that ghouls were more important to Heisei than his fellow investigators. Toru rigged his Quinque with RC suppressant to prevent Kaneki from using his Kagune. Ora's nephew then stabs Kaneki from behind. Ora's nephew is a second-year Quinx. Toka and Toru begin trading blows. Toka impales Toru. Toru then holds up Yukira's photo, along with a hand that has an engagement ring on it. Toka kicks Toru across the face, claiming she's never heard of Yukira. Ora's nephew and Kaneki go at it. Kaneki impales him with his Kagune, since the RC suppressant hasn't taken effect yet. The Ogai arrive on bicycles and smash into the coffee shop. Toka and Kaneki escape. Toru screams that she's gonna kill them both. Grave Robber then asks Sato what destroys civilizations. She says that the act of discovery leads to destruction. As an aside, the kanji for Ogai looks like two characters for death, mirroring each other. Juzo declines an invitation to speak to Furuta. Juzo talks about peace with Yuri, wondering that if humans or ghouls would hypothetically disappear, if it would achieve those ends. Kaneki never thought about Hide, since he would have been consumed by seeing him again. Toka then gets on top of Kaneki and begins to kiss him. Takomi and Yoriko get married. Yuri and Toru strike up a conversation. Yuri wasn't planning on coming to the ceremony, but when he heard Toru would be here, he decided to come. Toru states he went to the cafe and met Heisei there. Toru wants to stop him and bring him back to the house, where they all used to live together. Toru admits his love for investigator Heisei Sasaki and doesn't care about the potential consequences. Shin-senpai visits Aunt Aura in the hospital. Aura lost her legs, and her nephew promises to bring Heisei back as a Quinkei. Kori meets up with Okahira, who died during the Rose extermination. Kori suspects he's alive due to Dr. Kanou. Okahira needs to take his medicine, or he'll die again. Toka watched Yoriko's wedding from afar. She hands Kaneki a ring with her parents' names engraved upon it. An Ogai member kills a man at a restaurant, claiming he's a ghoul. Similar events happen across the 23 wards. As Furuta states, things are more peaceful now. Naki saves a ghoul named Ko from the CCG investigators. Naki invites Ko to the goat's hideout. Ko is brought to Shu, who takes him to his new living quarters. Shu tells Ko they're preparing for a revolution. Just then, their king returns. Everyone looks on in awe as the king jumps onto a crane. Various ghouls toss down Quinkeis. As Kaneki states, they've disarmed nearly 1,000 doves. I will not stop until you can return to the surface. Shu reminds Kaneki they'll starve to death soon, and the doves plan on burying them inside their dwelling. Kaneki has a strict no-kill policy, since he wants to ensure a safe future for all ghouls. Toka hangs out with orphan ghouls from the Aogiri tree. Nishiki talks about how tough it is to find suicide victims for sustenance, because of the CCG's efforts. Nishiki recounts a tale about a one-eyed ghoul leading the ghouls to prosperity after the destruction of World War II. The CCG mounted a comeback, driving the ghouls underground. The One-Eyed King henceforth built an underground community in the 24th Ward, waiting for an opportunity to strike back. Nishiki hands Toka a small bag. The 100-year battle between the CCG and the ghouls is nearing its end. Hamba urges Juzo not to push himself, but Juzo claims he'll become a ghoul if it will end the battle. Juzo is still hoping that Shinohara will recuperate. In Furuta's office, the clowns hold a secret meeting. Itari relishes the opportunity of watching the ghouls be wiped out. Furuta enters the room, claiming he needs a new nemesis, the ultimate enemy, to put an end to this meaningless war. And this person will receive the family name to boot. We will call him Ryu. Ayato's group enters the 24th Ward. Toka takes a bite from the burger that Nishiki gave her. Furuta then reminds Takomi about Ghoul Countermeasure Law, Article 88, Clause 1. Those who give and/or safe harbor to ghouls will be subject to severe punishment. Shu attacks Ko, and the boy reveals his Kakugan eye. Ko releases his Kagune, but is quickly surrounded by the ghouls. Ko is an Ogai and is here to kill someone. Ko's real name is Hajime. He was orphaned by ghouls and trained by the CCG. They hand Kaneki a letter that Hajime wanted to give him. It states that Yokira is being detained for violating CCG law. Toru wrote the letter and plans on helping Kaneki, provided he meets up with him at the chateau. It's a trap, says Kaneki, as he burns the letter. Furuta informs Aiwa that his son is in custody for assaulting an investigator. Yuri visits Takomi, hearing the news that he struck Toru. Due to his wife's involvement with Toka, she's going to be killed. Nishiki states that the CCG is focusing their efforts on the king. Kaneki wants to take on their head. Nishiki mentions that Kaneki's got a kid on the way, so the One-Eyed King rushes over to Toka. After getting nowhere when he questions her, he finds a calendar with a potential due date on it. Toka's midsection begins to throb, as Yokiro thinks of Toka in her cell. Toru anticipates that Heisei will come to him, and when he does, he's finished. Toka finds a note in Kaneki's cell. It states that Yoriko is sentenced to death. Toka reads a picture book to the orphan ghouls. Kaneki visits Hajime in his cell, which excites the Ogai. Kaneki verifies that Toru's letter was indeed real, and determines how he'll save Yoriko. Nishiki explains to Kaneki that he's aging at an incredible rate. This is due to the fact that he's half ghoul, half human. To stop the aging, Kaneki could start consuming RC cells. In other words, cannibalize. Ayato is attacked in the 24th Ward. He questions the ghouls what happened, and one explains that it was Nagaraji. Kaneki's condition is worsening due to the accelerated aging. He wants to save Yuriko, but then Toka admits to being pregnant.
You are not!
Kaneki wants to get married. The two then leave permanent bite marks on each other, signifying their oneness with each other. The goat seems to have found a solution to their food problems. The CCG is planning on a big execution, as Kaneki wonders what he can do to not lose anyone. Kaneki then awkwardly announces that him and Toka are getting married. Saiko doesn't want to see Yoriko die, but Yuri says nothing can be done. Saiko doesn't want to be a part of the organization that kills people. Yuri agrees that the CCG has gone astray, and suggests that they become terrorists. Meanwhile, Kaneki and Toka have a ghoul wedding. The goat sends out a scavenging squad to recover food for the next 6 months. Hajime then sticks out his tongue, revealing that he has a tracking chip inside. Yuri determines that the Washu family is too powerful. With the help of Aiwa, Yuri plans on a coup d'etat. Aiwa states that Takome, his son, looked up to Yuri. Aiwa is also reminded of Yuri's father while in Yuri's presence. The CCG investigators want to prove the integrity of Furuda's spirit. Meanwhile, the scavenging squad nears its checkpoint. Hajime kills the ghouls who are keeping guard. Hajime's parents refused to offer ghouls surgical waste at the hospital that they worked at, so they were killed. Toka then notices a group of Ogai, telling the children they need to hide. Furuta reminds the investigators that they need a witness for their plan to work. Shikore and Roma appear from behind the desk, in a menacing fashion. Aiwa and Yuri prepare themselves for battle. The two take the upper hand, with Yuri stabbing Roma in the head with his Kagune. Aiwa chokes out Shikore in the meantime. "You haven't beaten her yet." Yuri is then impaled multiple times. Toka urges everyone to get to the 20th Ward tunnel. Kaneki gets a bad feeling when he's foraging for food. He almost saves a child from the Ogai, as the white suits jump into action. Toru then arrives. Toka immediately recognizes him. Toru commands the dead Ogai to get up, which they do whilst hurting themselves. The Ogai then release their frames. Roma's parents have been gone as long as she can remembers. She wanted nothing more than to kill humans in the most brutal fashion possible. Hence, she formed the clowns. The doves don't know I'm the founder. Not even the clowns know whose garden they play in. A flashback of the second Cochlea raid is shown, with Tatara offering a deal to Roma to join the Aogiri tree. Roma declines, however. Tatara attacks, but accidentally releases her from her cell. Roma visits Uda afterwards and gets a haircut. She also finds out about Kaneki and Anteku. Uda proclaims the clowns have a new face. Uda then tells Roma that the clowns have a new face, a man who previously worked with the CCG. "This world is a circus. Everything is just meaningless fun," claims Roma. She enters her Kakuya form, which is called Daji Mother. Aiwa aims to defend the defenseless Yuri. Toru commands the Ogai to eradicate the ghouls and focus their efforts on Toka. Yomo urges Toka to escape since she has something to protect. Toka and the ghouls then run away. However, Hajime is waiting for them, and he proclaims that this is a dead end. Hinami is pushed back by Hajime's Kagune. Hajime refers to Hirako as Judas. A hooded figure then attacks Hirako from the side. Aiwa knocks down Shikore, but Roma retaliates and returns the favor. Yuri lies motionless, remembering the last moments he saw Shirazu. Maybe if Shirazu was still alive, everything would be alright. Roma pulls Aiwa's arm as Yuri headbutts Shikore. He cuts off Shikore's arm and rushes towards Roma. The girl smashes him like a bug and eats him whole. Not long afterwards, Yuri frames out and bursts out of Roma's Kakuya. Shikore and Roma combine their efforts, but Yuri unveils his shield Kagune. Shikore is knocked back and Roma is decapitated. Goodbye. Aiwa apologizes for the death of Yuri's father. "No, it wasn't your fault," screams Yuri. To cope with the pain, Yuri blamed others for his father's death, but he's past that now. Furuta impales Aiwa's neck, killing him instantly. "Furuta! You should die," replies Furuta. Just then, a bullet goes through the chairman's head. Furuta leans back, but pulls the bullet out as if nothing happened. The shot came from Muruta's group as he tells his men to open fire. Furuta looks to be done, but then he retaliates with his Kagune. The group shoots armor-piercing RC rounds at Furuta, but the chairman jumps out the window. Matsuri follows suit with a katana in his mouth. Furuta knocks him back with his Kagune and escapes. Muruta holds Aiwa in his arms, with Yuri looking for explanations for what just happened. Matsuri greets Yuri. Muruta then asks what they should do with Mr. Terrorist, i.e. Yuri. A mysterious man holds up a sign saying that he needs Yuri's help, and it turns out to be Hide. Meanwhile, Toru is impressed by Yoma's abilities. Ora uses a bluff attack to lure Toru into a trap. Toru evades it and thinks of Heisei with contradictory emotions. "I've come for you, instructor!" Wait, that's not right. Meanwhile, Hirako's Zero Squad battles with Hajime. The squad struggles. Hirako instructs them to fight Hajime as if he's a ghoul. During their escape, Toka is pierced with a dagger. The ghouls who are still foraging for food, including Kaneki, Shu, and Banjo, are unaware of the attack on their hideout. Furuta ordered S3 squad in Yogai to commence Operation Goat Sweep. Despite the fight in his office just 6 hours prior, Furuta arrived on time to lead the S3 Juzo squad. Elsewhere, Kaneki and Shu mull over their choice not to attend the April 23rd execution ceremony. Furuta could use this opportunity to... Shu questions the king's resolve. Kaneki remains steadfast, understanding that he can't let his people starve. The white suits fight with the Yogai. They remark that humans are acting like ghouls. Misa reports that the ghouls in the 24th ward have escaped. Naki and Misa continue fighting to buy them more time. Naki slicks his hair back with blood, realizing that dying is nothing to be sad about, as he'll get to see Yamori once again. Yomo is covered in blades by Toru. Despite his best efforts, Yomo falls down due to pain and exhaustion. Toru, however, gets ensnared in Yomo's range, giving her quite the shock in the process. Ora's nephew loses it, but Yomo easily crushes his neck with his bare hands. Meanwhile, Hinami blocks the exits from the Yogai. Furuta announces it's time for the Reaper as Juzo steps forward. Toka dodges Hanbei's attacks. Juzo moves like lightning to gash into Hinami. Elsewhere, Uda, with a different face, warns Yomo that if he goes any further, he'll lose his life. Toka confronts Juzo. "Have we met before?" asks Juzo. They engage with each other, with Hinami flying in with her Kagune. She unleashes a devilish Kagune, knocking out several investigators. "Go, Toka! You have to protect the children!" Toka blames herself for what happened to Kaneki and Hinami. Juzo slices off Hinami's left foot. Hinami's wish is for Toka to live. She thinks about Kaneki as Juzo lunges in for the final blow, until a Kagune appears from nowhere. Kaneki mulls over his life's choices, realizing that one choice can drastically alter your path. It wasn't supposed to be like this, thinks Kaneki. Kaneki finds Naki dead. Misa tells him that the escaping ghouls are heading toward E14. Kaneki rushes over to said location. In a flashback, Furuta informs Juzo about the covert operation that only the best investigators will participate in. The purpose of Koryoji is complete eradication of the enemy forces. Furuta reminds Juzo that the CCG's yearly expenses are exorbitant and rising. Because treatment facilities are financed through the same budget, they need to end things quickly if people like Shinohara ever hope to receive the treatment that they need to survive. In the now, Kaneki stares down at Juzo. The two engage in an epic flurry of attacks. Kaneki urges Hinami to escape, and that he'll be right behind her. Juzo and Hanbei activate their errata armors. While Kaneki enters his Kakuya form. Kaneki has lived for this day. Unfortunately, he's then seen on the ground, limbless and defeated. "You lost, Kaneki." Furuta had Route E14 blocked. Furuta anticipated Kaneki's every move. Hajime then drops the head of Ihei and Sozu next to Kaneki. Furuta tells Hajime to treat Kaneki with respect, as this is finally game over. Toka's squad is then halted by the Yogai. We then see a hypothetical scene where Juzo is impaled by Haisei's Kagune. "I killed him." We then see all the past iterations of Kaneki surrounding his limbless body. They squabble over his past decisions, wondering where they went wrong. "Stop talking about what ifs. Face reality, you punk." Am I not gonna see Toka again? A million thoughts race through Kaneki's mind. "I won't back away. I'm moving forward, like a centipede." Kaneki bites into the face of Hajime and impales him with his Kagune. Kaneki slaughters the Yogai, thinking of Toka the entire time. Just then, a monstrous, centipede-like Kaneki emerges to the Yogai's horror. "Eat up, baby," says Furuta. Kaneki smacks Furuta with his Kagune. "I win, my sweet, sweet dragon." Kaneki's monstrous Kagune then pervades the entire city of Tokyo. Assault helicopters attack Kaneki's dragon form. Tanks enter into the fold as Kaneki attempts to escape. Furuta visits Kori in the 24th ward. Kori wants Ihei and Kishio back, but Furuta reminds him that the probability of bringing them back is close to 0. According to written accounts, the king of the 24th Ward once bestowed life. Furuta is no longer the bureau chief. Yusa then questions Hirako. Are we heading toward the world Investigator Arima envisioned? I don't know, responds Hirako. All hell is breaking loose at the CCG. Some workers inspect the massive Kagune. Takomi frees his wife from imprisonment. Nishiki questions the others about Kaneki's whereabouts. That thing is Kaneki, replies Toka. Shu becomes emotional, screaming that they should have stopped Kaneki when they had the chance. At the CCG, Maruda urges everyone to request assistance from the Self-Defense Force and the police. In the 24th Ward, Toru gets up and checks in on Shin-senpai. He's still alive, despite having his neck crushed by Yomo. Hide then questions Maruda if they should ask the expert. In a flashback, Juzo is knocked off his feet by an earthquake caused by Kaneki. In the now, Juzo bears the responsibility for not finishing off Kaneki, and he will thusly see this through to the end. Mr. Ogura is called in by Maruda to talk about the monster. Hide enters the room, having gained the ability to talk with a device underneath his scarf. Ogura states that Kanou lost his mother before college, changing him forever. Maruda determines that Kanou may have completed his research and is now set on visiting his mother's grave. Maruda orders a stakeout at Kanou's mother's grave. Hide meets up with Akira and Amon. Hide has been watching all the major events from the shadows in hopes of saving Kaneki. Itari drags along an unconscious Yomo to Toka and Nishiki. She claims that Uda brought him here, since they're friends. Itari states that Kaneki became who he is in effort to help the ghouls. Everyone talks about their love for the king until
Shut up!
Shu tells them all to shut up. Am I the only one who wants him to be happy? He can't read his books, he can't drink coffee, can't talk to his friends or his beloved wife. He can't even hold his child. And, with any luck, I'd get a bite. A father and child combo meal.
Bruh.
Ayato wonders what they'll do. At the graveyard, Kuro watches over Kanou. Kanou claims that the ghoul research can now go to productive ends, rather than building new Quinkes. Kanou states that the Washus came from the Middle East. Kanou developed many prototypes of the Washu Kakuho and put the core into Furuta. Thus, the cage was broken. Kanou has no regrets. He puts a pistol against his head and pulls the trigger. Maruda is informed about Kanou's death, yet he seems unconcerned, stating their insurance will pop up soon. Kanou's assistants then rush into the CCG with information regarding that monstrous thing. Hide then asks Toka if she wants to dig Kaneki out. Kanou's assistants liken Kagune to origami, in that it holds a vast matrix within. If they can remove the main body from within, the Kagune should enter the decay phase. Maruda wonders if they can wait it out. However, the assistants reveal that that would roughly take 2 centuries. Hide then arrives with Akira, Amon, and the other ghouls. Kori announces that Furuta stepped down as the bureau chief, and that his real objective was to bring forth that monstrous thing. Kori doesn't want to work with the ghouls, yet Amon reminds him that the preface of the CCG law states that peace is essential, and that countermeasure personnel must make every effort to maintain it. Psycho volunteers to fight with the ghouls, as the other investigators are hesitant to lend their support. In a surprise event, the ghouls toss their masks into the air. To hell with pride, yells Toka. Maruda tells Juzo that if he decides to cooperate with the ghouls, then everyone else will be forced to follow suit. Let's all do it together. It'll be easier that way. The CCG accepts the ghouls' proposal. Toka explains that when the Nagaraji attacked the eyeball of the king finally stopped moving and turned into stone. While working on a computer, Kimi determines that sonar might be effective in locating Kaneki. Nishiki walks in, finally reunited with his girlfriend. Kimi volunteered to be Kanou's assistant, since his research is a cut above everyone else. Her dream is for humans and ghouls to live together, without the fear of persecution. Nishiki expresses doubt, yet Kimi reminds him that Kaneki is a human turned into a monster. Hence, ghouls are solving an issue created by humans. Matsuri informs Yuri that the king is a one-eyed ghoul from the Washu family, yet he despises the Washu family. Matsuri has ghoul blood inside of him and wants to take his revenge on the people who killed his father, i.e. the V. The V then arrives, but Takomi drives them off. Toka then suggests that Hide take off his mask, which he does. Toka then wonders if she can repay Kaneki, since he saved her life numerous times. Hide then asks about their wedding, and Toka states that she gave him a ring. With this statement, she then realizes this may be the key to finding Kaneki. Kimi remarks that they may be able to use metal detectors to locate Kaneki. With the dragon's massive size, they'll need a lot of metal detectors. Shu's father calls in a favor with the Prime Minister to approve the disbursement of numerous metal detectors. In the third ward, Misa gets a signal on her metal detector. Yuri commands his squad to get moving. The signal is getting stronger. However, Toru comes flying in to attack Toka. Misa defends her as Toka dodges Toru's attacks. Toru doesn't care that he's getting in the way. In a fit of rage, his Kagune strikes the eye of the monster. The many eyes open up, a lot earlier than expected, as the dragon begins to rumble. Countless humanoid Kagune emerge from the monster and begin attacking the investigators. The ghouls/investigators go on the offensive. Misa tells Yuri about the investigator with the eye patch. Toru and Toka continue their battle, with the Quinks grabbing onto the ghoul's neck. "I'm going to rip off your limbs so you can't move, and watch you die. My husband's waiting for me up there," screams Toka. Shin-senpai kicks down Toka from behind. Toru has a deranged look in his eyes, but Yuri urges him to stop. Yuri urges Toka to escape as he confronts Toru. Toru is infuriated that the CCG is working with the ghouls. Xiao and Higemaru chase Shin-senpai. Shin-senpai can't accept working with ghouls, claiming he's a proud human. After a brief scuffle, Shin-senpai remembers his aunt, and how her body was always covered in scars due to numerous fights with ghouls. Xiao kicks him down, calling him a fool for his current actions. Meanwhile, Yuri and Saiko engage with Toru. After the scuffle, Yuri remembers that Toru's RC level is only 3, meaning he's been suppressing them all this time. But now, it looks like he's releasing them in the form of a terrifying Kagune. In a flashback, Heisei walked in on Toru with his shirt off. In real time, Toru smashes Yuri into the ground with his Kagune. Saiko wonders what Toru wants, but he states it'll all be over soon. Xiao punches Shin-senpai in the face, knocking him down. She stomps her leg onto his chest, informing him that his aunt is helping out with the current mission. Higemaru states that the current mission is all about peace. After mulling it over, Shin-senpai reluctantly joins the cause. Yuri doesn't want to abandon Toru. Toru remarks that Heisei knew he was a biological woman all along, yet he pretended not to know to protect him from being hurt. Toru believes that Kaneki needs him and not Toka. Toru angrily rams his Kagune into Yuri's abdomen. Yuri grabs his arm, refusing to kill him. Toru knocks him back. "I'll just keep going if you don't stop me." Saiko stands in the way of Toru and Yuri, claiming they're family. Toru calls her family a piece of shit, as she impales Saiko in the abdomen. "Do it!" screams Saiko. Toru furiously attacks again, but this time, Yuri steps in the way. "Mutsi, if you made your choice, why are you struggling with it?" Toru claims she should have died multiple times in her life, but despite it all, the chateau kept her going, especially the people living inside of it. "I can't fool myself any longer either. I don't deserve to live. I'm sorry." Saiko knocks the knife out of his hand. "I love you, Mutsi," cries Saiko. Yuri grabs the knife and says they'll keep stopping him from committing suicide. Kaneki wakes up in what looks to be a shrine situated in a vast body of water. Kaneki looks for Toka. Well, anybody really. Is this a dream? Kaneki remembers being stopped by Juzo and being absorbed into something. Am I asleep right now? Am I awake? Or am I dead? Kaneki rushes into the water, frantically stating he's gotta go back. The water engulfs him, and the waves become too strong. In the shadowy depths of the water, Kaneki sees multiple corpses floating around. "Where are you going? To kill someone?" questions Rize. Kaneki wants to save everyone and return to the goat's hideout. "No, Kaneki. The dove went after them because you were there." Kaneki wanted to reach a point where ghouls and humans could have a dialogue with one another. Rize compares him to a dictator and shows him a vision of the destroyed goat hideout. Kaneki grabs Rize's hand and hears all the dying words of those who were lost. The people in the water were all killed because of him. While Kaneki trembles, Rize mocks him by laughing. "People died because of you. You shouldn't have done anything from the start. Isn't this what you want?" The dead people they've killed continue filling the ocean. Rize was designed to become the seedbed, a birthing machine if you will. In the end, she was divvied up into small coffins, the Ogai. Rize claims that her and Kaneki are one. She questions Kaneki on how he'll atone for all the dead people. Kaneki just wanted to feel needed by someone. In actuality, he never cared about others, so long as they needed him. Rize and Kaneki are alike, irresponsible egotist. Kaneki wonders if he's subconsciously condemning himself. Maybe you're my fantasy, remarks Rize. After all this time, Kaneki still can't hate Rize. I get it now. I had happiness. The sky cracks open as more dead bodies fall into the water. Kaneki will henceforth cross the ocean of blood by accepting his sins. Meanwhile, Toka fiercely searches for Kaneki's body. She eventually comes upon the ring she gave to Kaneki, around an arm with multiple protruding eyes. She continues digging, but is attacked by the Kagune monsters. A humanoid Kagune looks for the finishing blow. However, the Q Squad comes to her rescue. Toru briefly glances at Toka as the ghoul begins digging once more, until she finds Kaneki's body embedded within the monster. Maruta requests that they bring Kaneki's body back for analysis. Yuri grabs Kaneki from the back and begins the extraction. The monstrous Kagune attacks as the dragon attempts to pull him back in. In desperation, Yuri cuts Kaneki loose. The monster then begins to self-destruct. Yuri carries Kaneki wrapped inside of a body bag. Strangely enough, people in the 19th Ward transform into ghouls. The V approaches the dragon, encountering an embryonic structure with a woman inside. The structure erupts, with the girl falling into the hands of a V member. "Good morning, Rize, my adorable dragon," says Furuta. Kaneki has faint brainwaves. He also contains several unidentifiable organs. They thusly want to perform exploratory surgery to learn more about this monster. Hide heads towards Maruta as Toka stays with Kaneki. The goat members arrive with Shu, bringing the king flowers. Toru doesn't want to see Kaneki due to her guilt, but Yuri explains that everyone holds too much in, and he should go see him nonetheless. Saiko, Akira, and Amon then arrive at Kaneki's side. Hirako conveys that Kishio once stated, all humans will become ghouls. Doctors are dealing with a high number of cases of humans turning into ghouls. Maruta wonders if they are missing something. Miraculously, Kaneki wakes up and greets his friends. Saiko jumps on Kaneki and clenches him tightly. Nishiki squeezes his face, wondering if he could ever die. After Nishiki leaves, Toka gives him a hug. Kaneki finds out that Hide brought together the members of the GOAT and the CCG to help him. Hide's alive?
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Thinks Kaneki. Yuri and Saiko escort Kaneki through the city. The city has been evacuated, and lots of areas don't have electricity. The three then find Ruisawa, who is presumably eating another human. Furuta appears on a TV screen, impersonating a reporter who is about to interview the monster. The Special Defense Force opens fire on the monsters. The Quinks arrive on the scene, but everyone and everything is gone. Furuta explains that the humans supply energy to the oviduct. The oviduct then produces a spawn, and if the humans try to kill the spawn, it releases a toxin that turns them into a ghoul. It turns out that the broadcast is merely a recording. Monsters then appear, with Yuri urging Kaneki to take Saiko back to command. Because Saiko was the only one exposed, she wants to stay and fight while the others escape. Kaneki is paralyzed by indecision. I'm sick of being helpless. Kaneki slices through his adversaries in one go, noticing his hands return to normal. Saiko's RC values have climbed over 1,000, and her condition is worsening. Kimi determines that Kaneki has resistance to the toxin. After years, Kaneki finally meets up with Hide face to face once again. I want to see you. What did I do to you? Says Kaneki. Kaneki remarks that he's tired of being helpless. ROS patients, i.e. ex-humans, are receiving IV nutrition. They've identified 9 oviducts. The poisonous spawn are concentrated around a particular oviduct. The oviduct itself has a large underground opening, the perfect place to hide. Kaneki offers to go to the underground opening, since he's resistant to the poison. The V agents then assault the CCG in the streets. Kaneki wants to protect the building, but Hide interrupts and implores Kaneki to find the source right away. Ayato volunteers to be Kaneki's guide. Make sure you stay safe, says Toka. Yeah, I will, replies Kaneki. Maruta commands everyone else to keep the V occupied while Kaneki and Ayato carry out their recon mission. The clowns watch on. Donato then states they'll use quote-unquote her to buy some time. A bloodbath ensues in the battle with the V. Just then, a mysterious Kakuya descends from the sky and comes crashing in. Kaneki and Ayato are heading for the area under the 19th Ward. The CCG is surprised by the Kakuya, since it looks like the owl. The one-eyed owl proceeds to massacre everyone in sight. Kori takes up the lead, asking Kishio to give him strength to take down the one-eyed owl. Hirako, Yusa, and Takumi take on Kaiko. Kaiko insults the investigators for their lack of skill, but the joke's on him as Yusa slices his head in half. Juzo aims to cut off the owl's neck, which he does. Unfortunately, the owl continues its rampage. At the same time, Kaiko's head reattaches itself as he says, "Round 2. The V agents regenerate, calling the poison a blessing. Because half humans have short lifespans, becoming a ghoul brings them back into harmony. The dragon is the arc of life. The V agents are pleased with their transformation as they battle the CCG. Kori pierces through the owl's torso, but it has no effect. Juzo states that the owl blew away his prosthetic leg. The ghouls look to join in and fight the V, but Kaiko blows a whistle and they back out. The owl then causes deadly shockwaves, knocking back several investigators. Ayato and Kaneki enter the cave with gas masks on. They find the stem where the spawn are produced before being sent to the surface. Kimi announces on the radio that these ones are not poisonous, so they need to go deeper. As they climb down, Kaneki feels Rize's presence. They begin to lose Kimi's signal as Ayato struggles with the air quality. Just then, the spawn emerges from their egg-like structures. The two run away. Ayato decides to use his Kagune to blast several away, instructing Kaneki to fulfill his obligation. "I'm counting on you, stupid brother." The owl's attacks took over half of their men. Ora and Akira arrive, instructing Maruta to maintain the front line. Elsewhere, Juzo used his Arata armor to protect Kori. The owl's body has multiple protruding crosses. Toru uses his Kagune to restrain the owl's movements. Hide determines that somebody is controlling the owl. Hinami uses her abilities to determine the location of Donato and the other clowns. The clowns realize their cover is blown and get on the move. Amon attacks Donato from the blind side, but the ghoul blocks with his Kagune. At the same time, Yomo confronts Uda. "I will stop you," says Yoma. "Sure you will," replies Uda. The two friends trade blows with each other, just like old times. Donato goes on the offensive, yet Amon blocks his attack. Amon then transforms his Quinque into a lance and throws it straight into Donato's shield. Thanks to a drilling-like motion, it breaks through and impales Donato. After this happens, Toru notes that the owl's power is fading. Donato compliments Amon, stating he's not far behind Heisei. However, he's still got some tricks up his sleeve. Two Donato clones grab Amon from behind and impale him with their Kagunes. Kaneki sneaks up on Furuta, who's surprised he's still alive. Uda and Yomo's fight continues with Itari watching on. Itari thinks that ghouls will never be accepted in this world, hence the clowns play the fools to avoid despair. Uda is having fun, but Yomo doesn't want to kill or be killed. Uda then laughs. "I have always wanted to eat you. Let me feel alive, Renji." Sato wants to return something he borrowed from Amon. Amon is getting battered by Donato. Tomo wonders if Sato will save Amon, or if he wants him dead. Itari remarks that Yomo's gonna get eaten. Uda bites down on Yomo, yet Yomo breaks free with his electrical attack. Uda punches Yomo across the rooftops. Yomo jumps towards a lightning rod with Uda giving chase. Yomo redirects his body and kicks Uda straight through the rod. "Uda, we ain't kids no more." With his Kakuya destroyed, Uda crashes into the ground. Uda reminisces about their past, claiming today was the most fun he's ever had. In the past, Uda promised to avenge Yomo's sister. He kept trying to get her back from Kishio, but he was never successful. Uda states this world is all about loss. Yomo replies by saying you have to fight for what you care about. Yomo is looking forward to being an uncle for Kaneki and Toka's baby. "You can be a problem for me as much as you want, because you're a friend." "You got so strong, Renji," replies Uda. Itari remarks that Yomo is the only person who could change Uda. "You are my pain. You kill me, you keep me alive." Sato recounts Amon's history, stating that no one hated ghouls or sought justice more than him. Yet, he can't kill Donato, since he's been clinging to him since his childhood, and doing so would make him feel empty. Sato throws a cross necklace at Amon. "Why are you still wearing that thing, huh?" "Why am I still wearing it? This world is wrong." Amon furiously knocks Donato back. Amon acknowledges the evil of Donato, and he wore the necklace to remind himself of those days at the orphanage. "This world is wrong, and I too was distorting it. I loved him. I love Donato," thinks Amon as he kills his foster father. Nico steps in as Donato accepts his loss. Donato indulged himself in pleasure and cruelty. He sought meaning in blood and entrails. He admits to being evil. Despite the apocalyptic circumstances, Donato believes the city and its people will return with time. Donato laughs at his fitting ending. Amon remembers Donato's delicious donuts, and the fact that he always tucked him in on cold nights. Despite his anger, Amon still treasures those days at the orphanage. Amon acknowledges Donato's atrocities, as tears run down his face. "But what's wrong with a son loving his father? Donato laughs uncontrollably with tears streaming down his face until his last breath. Elsewhere, Kaneki knocks off Furuta's mask. Furuta wants to talk things out, but Kaneki is not interested.
Why so serious?
Kaneki corners a crying Furuta, looking for the final blow. Unfortunately, this was all part of Furuta's trap. Let me tell you something. I'm actually pretty strong. A brief flashback is shown of the garden, with Kishio recognizing Furuta's talent. In the now, Furuta gashes into Kaneki's neck. The two exchange blows with Kaneki pinning Furuta on the ground. Oh, I'm tingling! Furuta claims they're all just pieces on a board. Let's play. Furuta impales Kaneki from multiple angles. Furuta looks for the finishing blow, but Kaneki catches his sword with his teeth. Kaneki acknowledges Furuta's superior talent. However, I will beat you. I will beat you and save everybody, humans and ghouls. Kaneki throws a barrage of cross-like projectiles towards Furuta. Furuta remembers talking to the chairman when he was younger. The chairman explained that the branch families, Furuta, Arima, and Kaiko, all die around 30 years old. In the now, Kaneki takes Furuta's right arm. Furuta points out all of Kaneki's failures. You will fail again tonight. You will ruin everything. Furuta enters his Kakiya form, with the battle intensifying. Furuta enters a delirious state, proclaiming he wants it all. Furuta then imagines himself with Rize and children before Kaneki delivers the final blow. The bird in the basket. When, oh when, will it come out? Assistant Special Investigator, do you ever think that everything is meaningless? The owl stops moving, so the CCG focuses their efforts on the V. Suddenly, the apes with the black daubers appear, but it turns out their corpses were turned into humanoid quinkes. Kaiko states that the Washu family were eating corpses of past investigators. Hence, it was the V's job to scrounge up the bodies from the graveyards. The V will use their power to create a new world order. Kori and Hirako defend themselves against the ape and the black dauber. Mogen comes in to help them out. Meanwhile, Juzo's squad and the Quink squad take on Kaiko. After he knocks them down, Yomo, Shu, and Nishiki arrive to provide assistance. In a shocking turn of events, Edo regenerates and cuts off Kaiko's right arm. She then proceeds to give him the finger.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
In another surprising turn of events, Naki and the White Suits join in the battle, ready to eliminate the V. Someday, it will all be meaningless, says Furuta. Because of his nihilistic outlook, Furuta henceforth decided to ruin everything. Furuta reminds Kaneki that Rize is responsible for his current disposition. Despite all the hardships he's endured because of Rize, Kaneki was able to make friends and find love. For Kaneki, it's not meaningless. This world isn't wrong, it just is. If I told you that I wanted a normal life, you'd laugh, wouldn't you? Remarks Furuta. Furuta reminisces about his time with Rize inside the garden. In the past, he hoped that things would remain the same, even into their old age. In an instant, Furuta finally succumbs to his wounds. Kimi informs Kaneki that the oviduct has a core, and if he removes it, it should stop producing the poison. Kaneki, promise me you'll come back safe, says Kimi. Kaneki then encounters the dragon's last defenses. If I were to write a book with me as the main character, it would be a tragedy. Kaneki states that everyone is the main character in their own tragedy. Humans are inherently flawed. Taken and be taken. Capture and be captured. Obey and be obeyed. Despite all the hardships and struggles, everything and everyone will be lost. We will be forgotten. Life is tragic. Yet we continue hoping to be beautiful. I choose this. I'm sorry, I'm gonna kill you, Rize. Kaneki stares down at a dead Rize. Suddenly, the oviduct begins to fall apart. Hirako then cuts Kaiko's face to pieces as the V has been defeated. The CCG informs all the officers to treat the wounded. Kaneki searches for Ayato, but starts sinking into the structure. As he sinks into the darkness, he sees a bright light, and it speaks to him. Hey Kaneki, I've been watching you all this time. Saiko tells Toka that she's scared. Toka grabs her hand and says she's scared too. So Saiko, will you wait for me? Sure, replies Saiko. A single butterfly flies off into the sky. Hide Hide recounts the events against the CCG in Furuta, which became known as the Dragon Assault. The poisonous oviduct was destroyed, but the remaining oviducts still produce non-poisonous spawn that attack people. They are called Dragon Orphans. The CCG was disbanded, with the Tokyo Security Committee, TSC, taking its place. The battle continues, even after 6 years. Maruda is the TSC director. Shu heads up the United Front, a ghoul organization that assisted the TSC. Banjo serves as the deputy representative. Matsuri works as a TSC employee. He also changed his last name to Suzuki after separating from his wife. The Washu bloodline, henceforth, ends with him. Ora is the head of the TSC Academy. Mogen became a monk. Hirako declined a position at the academy and instead took care of his grandparents. Yuri and Yusa Arima are hunting the remaining dragon babies. Haru Shirazu has made a full recovery from her ROS disease. After 3 years of searching, Yuri found Shirazu's body and gave him a proper burial. The entire Juzo squad was transferred to the TSC. Thanks to the advancements of regenerative medicine, Shinohara made a full recovery. Though Shinohara never got involved with the TSC, he assisted the committee from behind the scenes. Naki and Misa got married and had 9 children together. The TSC laboratory developed synthetic meats for ghoul consumption. Hori assisted the TSC, but then resumed casual photography afterwards. Shikori absorbed the cells of the Dragon Orphans, allowing him to become a Kakuya. He then set a record for most casualties by an individual ghoul, and became the most dangerous ghoul since the TSC's inception. Sato went missing after the Dragon Assault. Kuru battled violent ghouls in Europe and possibly the Middle East. Saiko completed her ROS treatment and trained the young Qs with Yuri. Toru was promoted to a special investigator in the CCG's regional branch. Ayato and Hinami joined the United Front, with the latter teaching orphan ghouls how to read and write. They're also together as a couple. Takomi and Yokiro had a child. Iowa recovered from his neck injury. Seriously, how did this guy recover? This guy got stabbed right in the neck. Anyway, Yomo allows his niece to braid his hair. Uda continues to try to kill Yoma in his free time. Itari harbors feelings for Uda, but she may have never told him about it. Toka works in the kitchen with the old gang stopping by to see her daughter. Seiko then hands an apple to Toka. "Hey guys," says Kaneki as he walks in. Ayato saved Kaneki from the dragon's fluids. Kaneki has henceforth helped the TSC and the United Front. Kaneki then tells Hide he's not sure if the world has changed for the better or for the worse. You don't want to be helpless, right? How many times are you going to say that? Hide lived in an orphanage after his ghoul investigator father died. Hide would travel the world to help spread the peace efforts of the TSC. He and Kaneki remain best friends for the rest of their lives. For those who are interested, Ken Kaneki's daughter is named Ichika Kaneki. She's a natural half-ghoul and can eat human food. And this officially ends the 7-year run of Sui Ishida's Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re. The original series was the 4th best-selling manga in Japan in 2014, with 6.9 million copies sold. The sequel, Tokyo Ghoul Re, was the 5th best-selling manga in 2017, with 5.3 million copies sold. And as of March of 2019, the combined series has 44 million copies in print. And due to the immense popularity, Tokyo Ghoul received an anime adaptation. Well, a couple of anime adaptations that did fairly well in the first season, but fell apart in latter seasons. This was because season 2 diverged from the manga, and Re was just a cluster of skipped material, mediocre to bad animation, and just overall a big mess. In fact, Ri probably didn't make a lot of sense if you didn't read the manga beforehand. But of course, I know there's still fans of the anime out there as well, so I'll let you guys be the judge of that. But with that, guys, we officially end the Tokyo Ghoul timeline series. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.